Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, my name is Dave Scott. We're glad to have you here as we are in for a very, very good night on the show. Mike Ricksecker is here to talk about not only time travel, but the Mandela effect as well. We're going to bring on Mike momentarily. At first, though, we're going to say hello to each and every one of you. We got SJ in the gold medal position, Race Fan with a silver, Tim Mothman in his goatee with a bronze medal tonight. Hello to JSCO, Robert Lamoth, Hippie Deidre. How are you tonight? Frankie B, Road Flair, and Karen in the Woo Train. Good to see you all. Luscious Jules, nice to have you here. Hi there, Eternity Eternal. And Keith McCormick. How you doing, Keith McCormick? Been a while. Good to have you here. And let's see, who else is here? Cosmic Joe, thanks for coming on in. Little Timmy James. How you doing, buddy? RC Mike CHS. Welcome to SOR Chat. Moving on here. We have Mel WD40 here lubing us up for tonight's show, because when you're talking Mandela effect, you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. So you got to be lubed up. You can't have any rigidness to make this show happen. Moving on, Bar Madison is back. Bar Madison will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Lee the Bee, Ethanol, Search and Destroy. How you doing? Hi there, Gory Tiger and Carol Amerio. Nice to see you both as we continue on with our roll call here. There's Thomas Rock, Dragonfly, and number 17 in your program, starting at center ice from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Janssen. Operation Shutdown. Nice to see you. Javier, Cryptid 559 is here. Javier will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. It's $5 per signature. Otherwise, he won't sign. Kitty Cattywack, JBD, nice to see you both here. Thank you for coming on in. Gamer Quest, Flat 6, Destiny Rocks, and Skip. Good to see you all. Hi there, Corey. Thanks for coming on in. Hi, Christine Lynn. Good evening to you. As we continue on with our roll call, Al Garay over on Twitch, 2,500 sit-ups in 2 minutes. No time travel necessary, he's saying. Stomach is jacked for tonight. Roger Blair, nice to see you. Tim Mothman and his goatee, 2 separate entities. Good to have you here. Laura Lobbs, nice to see you again. Matthew Goodka, Parasolo, and Susan Alloway, thank you for coming on in. Fapperoony, how are you? My Adventures, welcome to SOR Chat, my fellow Commonwealther, as we continue on with roll call here. And Beverly Beatty, nice to see you. Bobbert, good to have you back. Rock and Rory, thanks for coming on in. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Warded Dragon, good to have you here. Super Crazy, thanks for coming on in. As we continue on with our roll call, Oob to Joe's Main, you've got Mandela effects. Yes, you do. I'm Hardcore. Welcome to SOR Chat. While you're listening in on X, thank you. That's right. I will line up to the right of the studio for that autograph. Right on. There you go. Perfect. Millennium, my man. Good to have you here. So we continue on with our roll call. Dave, I love this answer. Anyone called Dave is a handsome bastard. That's right. That's right. I agree with that 100%. That's Dave approved right there. Erica Stover, thank you for coming on in as we continue on with our roll call here. Jamie Cotterill, good to see you. Tracy Winters, thanks for coming on in. Hi, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And we are going to start the radio side here. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and we are going to be interviewing Mike Ricksecker here, great author, television star, a guy who has the hair of an icon. We're talking Mandela effect. We're talking time travel. We are in roll call right now on our YouTube side, so just be patient. We're almost ready to go as we say hello to Rock and Rory. Digger Dog, nice to see you. Plaid Koala, thanks for coming on in. Marty Burback, happy Tuesday to you. Dean Moretti, welcome back to the show. And who else is next here? Oh, we're caught up. We are caught up. Reminder to all of you, the Super Chat is open. Hi, Noble Patrick. It's Stu Effin Gerson. Super Chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. Central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora for you. Rock out, Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our strength as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travel. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Got an awesome show of time travel and Mandela effect tonight. Author and television star Mike Ricksecker is here to break it all down for us at two of his favorite topics to bring up on this show. Then, in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller joins us with another spooky story. Then Robin Haynes will be here for the extended cryptid report. All right. This is one of my favorite guests here. I know I say that a lot, but Mike Ricksecker really is truly one of the greats out there. He's a researcher, he's an author, and he is an award winner with his book, Travels Through Time, Amazon bestseller, A Walk in the Shadows, and Alaska's Mysterious Triangle, as well as several historic paranormal books. He has appeared on multiple television shows and programs, including History Channel's Ancient Aliens and The Unexplained, Travel Channel's The Alaskan Triangle, Discovery's Fright Club, Animal Planet's The Haunted, multiple series on Gaia TV, and much more. Mike is the producer and director of the documentary series The Shadow Dimension, available on several streaming platforms, and produces additional full-length content on ancient wisdom, lost civilizations, UFOs, and the supernatural on his extensive YouTube channel. He's born and raised in Cleveland, and we're glad to have you here. The other thing I love about Mike, he's a United States Air Force veteran, and we love our veterans around here. Mike Ricksecker, it's always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How you doing?
Doing great, Dave. Thanks for having me back. And, we've known each other a long time, and I'm really impressed with how your station has grown. And, one of these days, that roll call is just going to keep going, and you'll be like, all right, how you doing, Mike? Great, Dave. Nice show. See ya. Goodbye.
You know what? For our radio audience who doesn't know, we start on YouTube about 6 minutes prior, and I say hello to everybody in our chat room. And I'll be honest with you, I have anxiety about that, Mike. I have anxiety that if our YouTube channel ever exploded, where you see these chat rooms with 900, 1,000 plus people in there, how would I say hello to everybody? It would absolutely kill me
You'd
if
be
I
going
couldn't
all night.
have an audience, because without an audience, you don't have a good show.
Yeah.
You need an audience. And our radio audience, I don't get to see them. I don't get to chat with them, which is why we do the YouTube side, where we can actually have one-on-one conversations. And, we don't take phone calls in this show, but if people want to ask questions, they can be on one of our social media platforms and ask questions that way. Because I think it's a new wave of doing broadcast is through social media. And you know what, though? I will be honest. That question has hit me very hard at times, wondering how I would get around that.
Yeah, I mean, you just might have to figure out some sort of rift in time and and be able to finagle it that way. But again, Dave, I'm just really impressed with where your show has gone here over the last several years, and I'm really happy for you. So it's a good problem to have.
It is. And you know what, though? When you have, and I'm going to pat you on the back, when we're able to have guests such as yourself on this show that can not only talk about paranormal, but supernatural, UFO, you're so well rounded in the entire phenomena. I think it just adds to the mystique of what we do on a nightly basis. So, kudos to you and the hard work that you do on a nightly basis as well.
No, thank you. I mean, it's I kind of touch on all the different topics because it's all related. It's all connected together, which is why I built up my platform, the Connected Universe Portal, and this book series we're going to get into here. The last two books, Travels Through Time and Portals to the Stars, they are part of the Connecting the Universe series because it's all connected. So yeah, when you talk about one piece of the phenomenon, you kind of have to talk about the others too.
You know what? I'm going to admit something here that you don't even know.
Uh-oh.
And this is what I personally think of you. About a year and a half ago, I was on a podcast being interviewed, because it's weird when I actually get asked to be on a podcast, be the guest. It rarely happens. And they said, if you could start a Sirius XM channel or your own radio station, who would you have on? And the first person I said was you as a morning show host.
Wow.
You would have to do the morning show, because that would kick off the momentum for the day. Right there was something very, very good.
Well, I'm very honored by that, Dave. Yeah, I have my Mike's morning mug posts that I do in the morning, and I've always tried to make like a little video clip show or whatever out of that. So that's very cool. I really appreciate that, Dave.
For our audience who may be listening to you for the first time, you're a United States Air Force veteran.
Yeah.
You are very indulged in the weird and strange for a long time now. Let's talk about the love you have for this subject, because there are very few people who are doing this full time, that this is your life. What's the love you have for this?
Yeah, I am doing this full time. That was a leap of faith. It is challenging to do that, and so it's one of those, when you do it, you have to be balls to the wall. So it's a passion, which is why I decided to take that leap. I had a very successful career in the IT industry, and I had always enjoyed computers as a kid, but my passion was always in writing. For one, I've been doing that since I was 7 years old, and secondly, trying to uncover the mysteries of this universe. I've always had a passion for mystery. That was like the first stories. The first book that I ever wrote was a mystery novel, and trying to piece together all of these different mysteries that we have around the world, whether it's supernatural and paranormal activity, the ancient lost civilizations, the UFOs. There are all these mysterious things in our world that people want answers to, and people are having experiences, and many times they feel like they're alone, and that people don't understand what they've seen, what has happened to them, that sort of thing. And it's one of those that trying to help people realize you're you're not alone in this. Many of us have had these experiences, and here I'll share mine, other people share theirs, and we all come together as a community, which is a wonderful thing. And the other aspect of this is, all this, knowledge that I'm taking in, it does no good if I just retain it myself. You have to pass things on to the next generation, and that's a big part of what my books are. 14 of them now is taking this knowledge that I've gained and pass it on to the next generation, and hopefully they'll pick up the mantle and keep all of this going.
I want to ask you, being a veteran here, because the UFO subject I know is something that you're following closely with the
Mhm.
drones, the
Yeah.
whistleblowers, and everything. Being former military on this, and you having kind of that inside knowledge that many of us don't on how the military works, why do you think so many of these military people coming out are getting such a hard time with their story, whereas there's people such as yourself who, and others, because there are a lot of veterans in our field, who
Yeah.
are able to get the respect that other people, like, take lately Jake Barber, the guy who came out with the egg-shaped UFO. He is getting, you might as well grill him on a barbecue. He's getting roasted so much on online here about whether or not he's the real deal or whether he's fake or whatever it may be. Why is this field eat itself so much?
Yeah, well, um, addressing the military part of it, that's you're kind of taking a leap when you do that as a former military member. There are those within that community that believe that when you start talking about what you saw, things that happened, that it's almost like a betrayal of trust. It's a brotherhood and sisterhood within that community, and so yeah, a lot of people think it's a betrayal. So to come out, um, and talk about these things, uh you're putting yourself out there, but because of the fact that you do have that military background, that code of ethics, and that sort of thing, plus you're taking that leap that you're going to be defying these people, it does garner a lot of respect to be able to do that. And there's a fine line that you have to really toe there, because some of the things that you start talking about, borderline national security. So, there are things. I had a top secret position that's all compartmentalized. So I had access to certain areas, others not. Um, so it's like I can talk about some things in generalities, but can't get specific. And so there becomes a bit of a gray area there. And so even today, even though, I haven't been in the Air Force since 1998, there are things I still have to be careful about. And I do think people respect that. And so that kind of gives, like when you have people like David Grush, Lou Elizondo, these guys coming forward, David Fravor, uh, people, kind of nod and say, okay, here's a guy that was there, that were in these military intelligence positions.
Do you think it has to do with the fact where someone like yourself, you haven't really flaunted your military career to give yourself a leg up, that a lot of these people maybe are flaunting themselves a little too much to try and make themselves sound more credible?
Um, it's personal preference, and I'm not going to, bash any of the ones that have done that. I mean, it's there for people to see that. Yes, I had a 6-year military career. I wasn't in as long as some of these others that maybe were 20 years and retired, Air Force, Army, whatever. I was in for a short stint during the mid 90s and got out in the middle of the big tech boom, and had an IT position. So it was, great as far as a career. So, and it's not like, what I ended up doing. I never saw any combat action or anything like that. I mean, sure, there are things that I did that you could say I, helped with national security, and I helped set up a communications system, like the first to ever deploy GCCS, which is still being used today. So there are things like that I did, but yeah, I never saw any combat action. I'm not 20 years retired, so it's a piece of my history. But I want my work, as far as like my writing, my research, what I've been doing with my films and videos and things like that. I want that to stand on its own. And yeah, sure, I have some stories from when I was in the Air Force as well.
Do you look at it as something that we should be cutting these guys a little bit more slack because of the fact that they can't say what they want to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge for them. I mean, you see what happened with Snowden, and a lot of what he said, I didn't really think I didn't think really damaged much of our national security. It was things that we kind of already joked about in the public, government spying on us, that sort of thing, phones are tapped and all that. And honestly, I was a little bit shocked when like even before him, after 9/11, the Patriot Act came out, and they're talking about wanting to tap the phone lines and all this sort of thing, which we'd already been doing. And everybody's throwing a fit, and I'm like, well, I thought everybody knew that we already did that. So so with him, it was more of video related and all that. I was a little bit surprised the wrath that came down on him. So I think people see that, and that does spook them a bit. And even when I was at NSA, I mean, that is like the very first thing that you go through, that orientation. You're sitting there in a room, you're signing all these documents, you're watching these videos of people that were that they considered traitors because they divulged some sort of secret, or they wrote a book that got them in trouble. And you sign there, I will not for the rest of my life ever divulge these secrets, write a book about this, that, or the other thing. And they can come back on you all those years later. So yeah, they kind of throw all this fire and brimstone at you that if you do this or that, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So so yeah, it does take some courage to come forward on a lot of these things, because you don't know that with one little thing that you say that they'll be like, oh, that's the thing, you're gone.
Yeah, it's one of those careers you have to watch every word you say inside and out. I could tell you right now, Mike, I would fail. I would totally fail. That's why I have a broadcasting career, because I'm a big mouth, Mike, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah, but you speak so well, so yeah, but it has been a challenge, Dave. And there are times I've kind of gotten a little close. I'm like, oh, I should stop there. I should stop there. Yeah.
Well, we're here to talk to you about time travel and the Mandela effect. We're going to get into time travel right off the bat, because this is a topic that I find extremely unique. And maybe it's my imagination, or maybe it's something that I want to believe, but I believe somewhere on this planet there are time travelers walking right now, hanging on out. Maybe they're having a beer sitting in front of a slot machine in Las Vegas. Maybe they're catching a soccer game in Europe. Maybe they're fishing in the Asiatic Sea. I don't know what they're doing, but I do believe somewhere that there is time travels walking around here. What do you think about that?
Short answer, yes. It's when we think of time travel, we always think of our science fiction movies, like Back to the Future and things like that. And I really don't think, and we'll get deeper into this as we go along. I really don't think that time travel is going to be jumping into a DeLorean, zipping off at 88 miles per hour, and off you go. It would be a lot of fun, but I really don't think that's what it is. But I do think that time travel exists because time does not exist. Time is a human construct that we've developed to describe our reality, to be able to keep track of ourselves, and like a record keeping device. So it helps us to show up at work at the right moment, so our supervisors don't get upset, to catch the bus at the right moment, and those sorts of things, when to plant the crops. It all helps for that. But it's a human construct. It's the fourth dimension, right? We have up to 11 hyperspatial dimensions according to our theoretical physics, and time is 4. We are actually multidimensional beings because our fourth dimensional consciousness is inside our third dimensional body, and we have access to all of those dimensions and all of those things below us. First dimension's a line, second dimension is a plane, a flat surface. Third dimension, well, that's our 3D objects, and fourth is time, which actually doesn't exist. All those above us, 5, 6, 7, 8, and onward, are above time. They're outside that dimension of time. So they would see time in a similar way to that we see a three-dimensional object. So they would be able to move in and about time at will, like we're able to pick up any three-dimensional object at will. So we have that old analogy of like the river of time, and that's a fine analogy. It's flowing, but it's always flowing in this one direction. But it's not the water, and using time as the water in this analogy. It's not the water that makes itself flow. It's the banks that are holding the water in place in the river that makes it flow. If you were to remove those banks, all that water, all that time would spill out to like a big giant lake or pond or something. And it would be all there that you could just move in and about of. And so that's what we're looking at here. We are in our fourth dimension. We are trapped within a rule set that keeps what we believe is time moving forward. But if we come out of that rule set above it, then we have access to it all.
Have you ever met a time traveler?
Possibly. That's hard to know sometimes. You might see somebody in passing that is a time traveler, you don't even know it. But, in a lot of the, I did a number of paranormal investigations for a long period of time, a good 15 years there. And in a lot of those situations that you might call some sort of haunting, or you're observing some sort of strange activity like a shadow person or something like that, these very well could be more time-related incidents rather than your classical, human spirit or residual energy or something like this.
So if you were to come in contact with a time traveler, where, say, John Doe shows up and claims he's a time traveler and wants to have a conversation with you, much the way, let's say, the whole John Teeter story broke out, what would you ask to confirm?
Yeah, and that's a tough question, because if this person is from, the future, they could say anything they want. Well, it's like this in the future or that in the future. How can you prove it or even disprove it, right? And so that becomes the challenge there. I would ask more about, the methodology of, how they got there, kind of the inner workings of, space time that they use to be able to move to here, and how they plan on getting back or to some other moment in time, and then ask to watch them do it.
Oh man, I would ask to take me to your time travel object. I'd want to see it. I want to see how they do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I wonder
if you're telling me that you are a time traveler, show me how it works. Which I don't really think is going to be a machine, and we'll get to that.
Oh wow, I had no concept of that. Here I'm thinking, Dr. Evil and his time machine, which spins away, and we just shrink in and then come back out. The funny part about that is, if you listen to somebody like Andrew Bashago, who is a child chrononaut allegedly using these jump rooms, it almost works the same as what we saw in the Austin Powers series. It is very, very weird how that kind of came out at the same time. But yeah, I never really put 2 and 2 together until we were just talking about that. But Mike, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. Hard to believe we're already through the first half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Author, researcher, television star, Mike Ricksecker is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, and we are working on time travel. A little bit later on, we'll get into the Mandela effect. Maybe the two intersect. We'll find out from Mike as we continue on in this great conversation tonight on the Mighty SOR. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. All right, we're clear. Remember, our audience can hear us.
Right.
Overlander, how you doing? Uh-huh. Yeah. Between Austin Powers and Back to the Future. Powerful stuff. Mr. Empathetic Paranoia over on X. Love the name. How you doing? Thank you for tuning in. Miss Tessa Marie, nice to see you. Warden Dragon, good to have you here. There we go. What an interesting topic.
Oh, I love this topic.
This is a topic where, because I'm not a real science guy, I'm more of a storyteller, because that's more my journalism background. But the whole science and everything behind potential time travel is just, it's incredible.
And here's the thing. So my book on this, Travels Through Time. I mean, yeah, there's science in it, but this is what I say. There's science in it without being too sciencey. There's a lot of metaphysics in it without being too metaphysical, but at its heart, it's a philosophy book, and it uses a lot of anecdotal stories and examples from science fiction. So to help the reader relate to the different concepts that are being talked about. So it's yeah, that was just an amazing passion project to dive into and write about.
I don't blame
Probably
you.
my favorite of all my books so far.
I don't blame you. I'm just proud, dude. The way you pump out books and research books. I've been working on my personal book for about 5-6 years. And I just wrote my first chapter this past weekend in about a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, oh man.
Sometimes it takes a while. I mean, my first book, I mean, I say it took 3 years, but it took 3 years from when I decided to finally really dedicate myself to it. But I'd already been working on it for a few years before that. So yeah, that first one can take some time.
All I'm saying is thank God for Google Docs and saving everything. I'd be lost without it, man. Totally
good
lost without it. But do you run with the way you are? I know you're very experienced at it now, but do you catch yourself now running your paragraphs through ChatGPT?
Nope.
Just to see if they can bring it to life a little bit?
Nope.
You don't?
I don't. I mean, ChatGPT can write a nice paragraph and all that, and I've seen it. The scary thing about that is because it writes it so well, a lot of people don't verify the actual facts. I've played with it a little bit just to see what it would do, and it's like it writes this beautiful paragraph, and then I go back and I check the information. It's like, oh, it actually got half the facts in it wrong. Like I've even thrown myself in there into ChatGPT. Who is Mike Ricksecker? Writes a wonderful paragraph about who I am, and it tells me that I wrote books that I never wrote. I've been on television shows I haven't been on. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that.
But it wrote it really nice. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm just curious. I think for my book, I'm probably going to try it just to color it up a little bit because I'm not getting into scientific doctrine. All I'm doing is going through my own experiences. And I think what I'm going to do is just try it out on one of the chapters just to see how it turns out. Because The hardest part about writing, see, my writing style, I was trained in radio. So everything I write is usually for, a minute to 2 minutes, not
Yeah.
descriptive,
Well,
descriptive as a novel should be.
yeah, I know with like the publishing industry these days, because of things like Chat GPT, that you're having to, put in the book now a disclaimer, this was written in part with AI and that sort of thing. And, I do kind of wonder, because people have ghostwriters.
Hmm.
There are many people out there, take like a movie star and things like this, that, they're not writing their own books, they're using somebody else
Hmm.
to write the book. So it's like, how different is somebody like that using a ghostwriter from somebody using Chat GPT?
Right.
I don't know.
Hold on right there because we're going to come back. Thank you to Boo the Beagle, our lone super chatter on the night. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store on our website. Here we go. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. We're talking time travel. Can you believe author Mike Ricksecker is with us here on the big show? We'll get to him momentarily, but first I want to remind all of you, if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Author, researcher Mike Ricksecker is here. You can find him on YouTube, his website, MikeRicksecker.com. We're talking time travel tonight, and his latest book, Travels Through Time. You can find it on his website. Once again, MikeRicksecker.com. Mike, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, again, Dave, thank you so much for having me again.
We're talking time travel here. You said something that kind of made me think right near the end of the last half hour, and that was, you don't believe that time travelers are coming here from DeLoreans or jump rooms or anything like that.
Yeah. No, I think real time travel has more to do with consciousness and meditation than it has to do with in any sort of machinery. It's when we see, I kind of mentioned some of these like paranormal incidents that people are having, what we call a time slip. So I have this, what I call stack time theory. And basically it's using the principles we've kind of already talked about with the dimensions. And all time being here concurrent. Take where you're sitting right now. Every moment that has happened, is happening, and will happen. We're all here concurrently. Every moment like a photograph in a giant stack of photos. And sometimes two of those moments will resonate at the same frequency for just a moment and will bleed into each other. And that's when we get something like a time slip. And the past will be able to see the future, and the future will be able to see the past and interact with it a little bit. So you have, some famous time slip incidents like the Versailles time slip, or this time slip that happened at the Conjuring House, and some of these that, there's actually been interaction there between these two moments. So, time travel would be the ability to be able to actually tune your frequency into one of these moments. And I'll just give an example here. So the famous poet Goethe, and he wrote about this in his book Dichtung und Wahrheit, or in English, it's Poetry and Truth. He's walking down the road one day toward the town of Dressenheim. He's having an affair with a young woman there, and he's just kind of lost in his thoughts thinking about this young woman. And as he's walking down the road, all of a sudden he notices out of the corner of his eye this interesting looking man that's wearing this gold trimmed gray suit. He turns to get a better look at the guy, and all of a sudden, poof, disappears. He's gone. He's like, whoa, what the heck was that? Where'd that guy go? He's kind of looking around a little bit, but the guy's nowhere to be seen. So nothing he can do about it. Continues on his way toward Dressenheim. Well, years later, not that he spent years and years in Dressenheim, but just Years later, he's walking down the same road on the way back from Jotunheim, and he's about to get to that spot on the road where he had that incident. And the incident pops back into his mind. Oh, this is where I saw that guy in the gold trim gray suit, and oh, wait a minute, I was the guy in the gold trim gray suit. I'm actually wearing it right now. And so this is when you Google doppelganger cases, this actually shows up as a doppelganger case because he saw himself. But it really wasn't his doppelganger, it was himself at another point in time. And this is actually what we would call a time slip, where he got to see himself for just a moment. And then the question is, okay, how did that happen? What was the catalyst for that? So we have to go back to the beginning of the story where he was lost in his thoughts. So he was basically in a type of meditative state. And we do this all the time. Like we'll be driving down the road and we zone out and we miss our turn, we miss our exit or whatever. Like, darn it, I have to turn around, go back. It's a common thing that we do all the time. And it's a slightly meditative state. Well, and that's the state that he was in when he was walking down the road thinking of the young woman. So when he got a glimpse out of that guy out of the corner of his eye and he decided to divert his attention to it, he broke himself out of that slightly meditative state and broke that synchronization with the frequency between his moment and that other moment.
I love the fact that you put the doppelganger in there because I do believe that there are people out there that have twins that are no relation whatsoever. And it kind of trips me out about it. I don't know if it's included in time travel or some sort of other phenomena, but it weirds me out, man, knowing that there are doppelgangers out there. But there are other people out there who have met their doppelgangers, maybe in a dream state in another dimension, another lifetime, or whatever it may be. Would that consider be time? If you
Well, I mean, like the whole
apologize.
Yeah, no, like the whole Hollywood look-alike sort of thing. I mean, that's not really a doppelganger. We use that term. It's a doppelganger is a German term that means double walker. And so, yeah, you happen to look like somebody, and it's just, there's only kind of so many variations that you can, throw in there, mix up the soup. And so you're gonna end up looking like some people. And it drove me nuts one time. I had a video assistant for a little while, and I had done a video on doppelgangers talking about this sort of phenomena. And the person, for the intro, used the Hollywood lookalikes sort of intro, and it was like, this has nothing to do with Hollywood lookalikes. But to give you another example of kind of another mixture of this whole thing that, again, some people would consider like a doppelganger case, but it's not, is and stories related to me a few years ago, where a young man, when he was a child, walked into the kitchen one day and saw this tall, dark, hooded figure standing by the kitchen table. Scared him to death. Boom, he ran out of the room. And it became like the hooded shadow person story of the household for years. Years later, he's a young man now, and he's at the kitchen table making a sandwich. He's wearing a hoodie, and all of a sudden he sees walking through the kitchen doorway this short shadow person that stops and then boom, zooms out of the room, and it hits him. Oh my God. It wasn't a hooded shadow person. It was me the whole time. I saw myself at two different moments in time. So, this is an interesting story because you have, the whole time slip going on where he's seeing himself at two different moments, but it's not fully formed either. It came off as shadows. And so, the question is, why did it come off as shadows? Why didn't he see himself in his full form? And I think that's because, we're talking about the synchronization of frequencies here. And Dave, you're on the radio, and you're an older gentleman like myself, and we remember the days with the radio where you turn in the dial, and today it's like click, 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 click. And it didn't used to be that way. Click, click, click through the stations. No, you had the band, and you had to like fine tune where that band was on the radio. If you're a little bit before or a little bit after, it wasn't crystal clear, it was fuzzy. And so I think that's kind of what was happening in this particular situation was, yes, he was getting in tune with his own frequency at another moment in time up and down that stack, but he was a little bit off and it came off as fuzzy or as a shadow rather than fully formed and clear.
I would say that there is something weird about that. I would love to meet that person who had that experience.
Yeah.
And I've often wondered, does this tie into the paranormal then, where I'm not sure what a ghost is? 10 years ago, I would have told you what a ghost is. It's a dead person. Now, I'm not sure because in
Yeah.
2018, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but in 2018, we actually had an experience where we were doing a ghost hunt on the original Gold Rush Trail, which is about 3/4 of a mile behind where I'm sitting right now. And as we tuned in, there were 8 of us or 9 of us doing this investigation. And as we tuned in, we realized through questions that we were talking to a Chinese couple that was heading up to Barkerville to the Chinese community that was being established up there. Uh, and we, after about 10, 15 minutes, and I'm paraphrasing what happened for the
Mhm.
sake of time, we said, okay, well, thank you. We'll let you go on your way. And
Right.
yet, all of us, we're in an area where there's no electricity, dude. And we had 8 or 9 K2 meters. And I know K2 meters are hated in the UFO or in the paranormal community. I don't care. I think they work. Okay.
They used to be
Uh,
well liked years and years and years ago. But
well,
times
when you
change, I
have,
guess.
when you have 8 or 9 of them going off at the same time, and there's no electricity, no power
Mhm.
lines around, there's something happening.
Yeah.
And on this particular day, I realized, hold on, we have the couple. If they're walking the Gold Rush Trail at this time of night, they obviously have horses and a buggy. So I'm walking down the path with my K2 meter and it's still going off, thinking, okay, well, here's probably the horses, here's the trailer.
Mhm.
And then it went off when I got to the end. So we actually realized that they couldn't move because we were standing on the trail. So when we
Yeah.
parted the trail, all of a sudden, we all have our K2 meters out watching it. And as their horse and buggy went down, you could see the K2 meters go from orangish red down to green, that there was nothing there. Mike, it was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen on it. And it made me wonder right from there whether or not that we opened up a different dimension that day or we were the ghosts to them.
Well, and that's what we're talking about with some of these time slip incidents. And yeah, and that sounds like a time slip incident. And so, and I see Katie Page down there. Great to see you, Katie. So yeah, that's one of the interesting things you kind of brought up. Okay, what is a ghost now, and that sort of thing. So that's where your investigative work comes into play. I mentioned before, multidimensional beings. So our fourth dimensional consciousness is inside our third dimensional body. Well, when the 3D body passes, the consciousness is still here, and even science now is actually starting to admit to this, even though usually they're very standoffish about it. But you have Roger Penrose, Stuart Hameroff with their research talking about the microtubules in the brain, that's where the consciousness resides, at least to them. And they've said, yeah, when the body dies, that the consciousness goes off to the cosmos somewhere. And when they're asked, where in the cosmos, they're like, we don't know, but they're at least admitting it goes off somewhere. So yeah, that consciousness, it could go, we don't really know, and that's the whole question. Where do we go when we die, right? Is it the fifth, sixth, seventh dimension? Is it something else even beyond that? Possibly. But it can also stay here for a little while too. Like, my grandfather hung out for a few years. Many of us within the family interacted with him, and then when my grandmother passed, boom, gone. Never heard from him or her again, aside from one dream visitation I had some years later. But nobody was being visited. Their consciousness went off somewhere else. Kind of what you were talking about there with that particular incident. I'll talk about the Conjuring House time slip story because this kind of adheres to that. So Andrea Perrin is sitting down, as a teenager, within the home, and she's just doing her homework. Her mother, Carolyn, wakes up, and she's like, "Hey, can you put on a short pot of coffee, reheat dinner for me, that sort of thing?" And Andrea's like, "Yeah, I'll go help." And she goes to do that. Carolyn sits down in the parlor. She's looking out into the dining room area, and all of a sudden morphs into existence is this family out of the 1700s. There's a woman cooking over a open hearth, and this fireplace at the time had been closed off for 100 years, but there it is, fire blazing. A couple of kids are running around, and then there's two gentlemen sitting at a table with pewter steins, and they turn and they take a look at Carolyn, and the one kind of elbows the other and says, "Well, would you look at that?" As if she was the ghost. And so they're having this little interaction there for a moment before the entire scene dissolves. So yeah, that's a time slip, but it's one of those, like you said, where in some cases you can be the ghost to these other people at another moment in time.
Getting back to time travelers, do you think as I asked you right off the bat, do you think we have people
Yeah.
that are here right now? What would separate them from us? Would we even know?
I mean, if you're talking time travelers from the future that are us, it might be hard to know. I mean, we've got plenty of sci-fi references to stuff like this, where in time travelers that are intentionally trying to travel back to another point and will dress in that sort of garb, whether it's the film Somewhere in Time or the television show Timeless, so they could mix and blend in with us, and we might not even know it. There's a time traveler walking down the street. So yeah, it's more of those ones that maybe unintentional, that could stand out to us, and maybe they are wearing something different, or like that time slip incident that we were talking about before. If they could hold that, and I think that's one area where technology could really come into place here. So I believe real time travel is going to have more to do with the consciousness and meditation than a machine. But I think where technology could come into play here is because we're talking about frequency, tuning in and synchronizing with a particular frequency basically with your mind. And technology, though, could possibly help us to hold that particular frequency. It'd still be challenging because the human body resonance fluctuates anywhere between 9 to 16 hertz and things like this, and even these moments in time are always in motion as well. So it'd be a challenge, but I think that's where we could get technology to come into play. But yeah, it's not going to be a DeLorean or something like that, I don't think.
You're killing the spirit of most of us.
I know it's fun. Yeah.
I know, but the idea, though, that we don't know the technology of the future, that we could be a vacation getaway, almost like the movie Total Recall, where somebody's lying in a bed, going on this mental vacation.
And that's another example there. But I would beg to differ that we don't know the technology of the future. A guy like Nikola Tesla certainly knew the technology of the future. And in Travels Through Time, I talk about what I call eternal knowledge. It's what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. Other people call the Akashic records, but it's that idea that all of the knowledge of the universe is readily available to us, and it makes sense. If all time is here, all time is concurrent, past, present, and future, that means everything that has happened is happening in love. All that knowledge of the past and the future is all here for us to obtain. It's a matter of tuning into it. And Tesla was a guy that, when he was a younger man back in Serbia, he was astral projecting. He was having out-of-body experiences. He was really in tune to all this. He had his thought experiments that he would conduct like Einstein. And, you look at this guy and some of the ideas and concepts that he was 100 years ahead of his time, where he's like, creating drones. He's talking about artificial intelligence. He's talking about, essentially, our mobile phones and things like that. Now, he was way ahead of his time. Where was he getting that? Well, he was tuning into that information that is eternally there, which is a type of time travel. You're pulling down information from the future.
Do you think we will ever have that technology that we could use at hand, or do we already have it?
Time travel technology?
Yeah.
Well, the machine is us. We are the machine. So in that sense, yes, the technology is there. We have to learn how to use it. And it's something that would take a lot of practice. I had an incident when I was a teenager. So a lot of my inspiration, from this goes all the way back to when I was a kid, and I absolutely loved the film Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour. And the idea that he could will his consciousness back into time just absolutely fascinated me. That he could actually lie down and convince himself that he was back in 1912, and he projected himself there. And the writer of this, Richard Matheson, wrote the screenplay, wrote the novel, which was originally Bedtime Return. He did a lot of research into time. In fact, he does one of his chapters in the book is really essentially a book review of the book Man in Time by J.B. Priestley. So he studied on this subject and incorporated this into his story. So when I was 13, we moved from Massachusetts to Ohio, returned to the place of my birth. But I didn't like it. I was, a young teenager, and I missed my friends. So when I turned 14, I guess a couple months after I turned 14, was the 1-year anniversary of that move. I decided that I was going to do like the movie Somewhere in Time and will myself back in time so I could go visit my friends and see them once again because I missed them so much. So I'm lying down in bed at night, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I actually put myself into some sort of meditative state. And as I'm lying there for some time, I started feeling these like undulating waves, like back and forth, which was fine. It was interesting. It was really relaxing. But then all of a sudden, I started feeling this electrostatic feel, and just tingly and all this. And it's like, okay, that spooked me, and I snapped right out of it. And I had no idea what I was doing at the time. But over the years, came to learn, oh, I was actually about to have an out-of-body experience. I was about to project. And the question is, because I had set that intention of trying to go back in time, would I have projected back in time like I was trying, or would I have just projected out into the room? That part I don't know, but I believe this is something that with practice we could possibly do. Absolutely.
We got 90 seconds to go before we have to go to break. At the top of the hour, Mike Ricksecker is our guest tonight. Before we move on, because I love the Mandela effect, and that's what we're going to get into.
Mm-hmm.
What is the tie between time travel and the Mandela effect, or is there one?
There is, and it's cause and effect. It's the universe trying to work itself out. Time travelers going back and maybe not intentionally trying to change something, but it's the universe trying to work itself out after something within the timeline has been changed.
So do you think then that maybe time travel is the reasoning behind Mandela effect?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a short answer for it if you only have a few seconds, but yeah, absolutely. I do believe that time travel is responsible for the Mandela effect.
Oh, I've never heard that theory, man. What's the 30-second
You gotta read
answer?
the book. Oh, I have a whole example for this, Dave, that we'll get into. But yeah, you're basically talking about somebody goes back in time and whether intentionally or accidentally changes something. And so again, all time is concurrent. It's all here, ever present. So that changes something further up in the stack, you have that ripple effect, that butterfly effect. And so, me sitting here right now, if somebody changed something from my past, that would, in the record that we're looking at right now, to our eyes, would be different, but somewhere in the recesses of my memory, I still have some recognition, like, no, that was different.
Well, you know what? It is one of those things where we're going to get into the Mandela effect. Now, I have had troubles believing this because I think there's a lot of misremembering going on. The more we look at it, the more there's something to this. MikeRicksecker.com is the website for our guest tonight. Check it on out. His books are there. We'll be right back with our Spaced Out Radio. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, Mike, we are clear. We got about 5.5 minutes. I'm going to put you in the green room. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, okay?
Sounds good.
Comment of the night so far, Supernova, great show. I saw this yesterday. Fantastic. I'll be right back, everybody. All right, Mikey, we are back. We got about 45 seconds. We got one
All
lone
right.
super chatter tonight. That is Boo the Beagle. So thank you very much for the love and support, Boo. Greatly appreciate it. Hi, Marie Palmer. How are you? Who else has snuck in here that I haven't said hello to? H-Town Kimmy, welcome to SOR chat. And yes, I would go back to 2010 to buy Bitcoin as well. I'm going to put that comment up. That's a good one.
Absolutely.
All right, Mike, here we go. We got 7 seconds. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight, from time travel to the Mandela Effect. Mike Ricksecker is our guest tonight. We'll get to him momentarily. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Hebitude. Hebitude is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Author, researcher, YouTuber, television star Mike Ricksecker is here tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're switching from time travel to the Mandela Effect, a topic that he absolutely loves. And we're going to go down this road if people are misremembering, or has there been a shift or many shifts in time? Mike, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
When did you start investigating the Mandela Effect?
I mean, this goes back a few years. It kind of became a result of, in part, the time travel research, but really it was a incident that my mother and I had. This was probably 7-8 years ago, and I'm at the kitchen table with my parents, and my mom and I started talking about a movie that we had watched. Well, they were kind of talking about some of my paranormal stuff, and then it was a old World War II movie, black and white movie, and it had ghosts that had been the pilots of this plane that had crashed in the desert, and they didn't know they had died, but they were there playing baseball, waiting to be rescued, and all this sort of thing. And we're like, man, what was that movie? Couldn't remember the name of it. So I told him, that's all right. I'll go home tonight and I'll look it up and figure out what the movie is. So I got home later that night, and I started searching around and couldn't find it, and kept searching. And it's like, I pride myself in research, and I can't find what in the world this movie was. And finally, buried in some forum out there on aviation movies, I find that there are other people that are also having a problem trying to find this movie. It's like, what in the world's going on? And so, people from all over the world are having the same issue. And there are some responses in there like, oh, you're misremembering an old episode of The Twilight Zone, or you are misremembering this 1970 movie with William Shatner. And like neither one of those are like, this can't be it. And so, I dive a little bit into each. And that's not the Twilight Zone episode. The movie with Shatner, I don't know. I messaged my mom. I'm like, yeah, Mom, was it a film with Shatner? And she's like, no, it couldn't be. She's a Trekkie. She's like, I would remember Captain Kirk. And, this was an old black and white movie. So it's like, okay. I decided to watch the movie anyway, just to see. And as the movie's going along, it's somewhat familiar, but there's a lot of things that are different. Like, for one, it's in color. And secondly, the ghosts know that they're dead right from the off. They already know that they crashed and died and perished and this sort of thing. But they are playing baseball and they are ghosts. So this is interesting. Shatner is part of this team that finds the crashed plane in the desert. They're trying to salvage it and all that sort of thing. He's, part of the army crew that's there. And it's like, yeah, I really don't remember Shatner being in this thing. But as the movie's going along, there's this scene in which one of the younger airmen, he's a little dim-witted. He goes over, again, he's a ghost. He goes over by the tents that are set up for the salvage team, and he's listening to the ball game on the radio. And he comes back, and the guys ask him, "So, how was the game?" And he's like, "Oh, it was a good game, but I don't understand how they moved Brooklyn to Los Angeles." And the way he said it was like as if he thought they moved the entire city of Brooklyn to LA rather than just the baseball team. And that's when it clicked, because I remembered that line as a kid because I thought it was funny. And it's like, oh my God, this is that movie. How in the world is it so different? And you have all these other people remembering it the same way that my mother and I did. So for reference, the movie is called Soul Survivor, and it does have Shatner in it. So yeah, that was the thing that kind of set me down that path of, what in the world is going on with the Mandela effect? Did I just experience that? And, to a degree, so did my mother. And if it was just my mother and I, misremembering a bit because, we've talked about it over the years and stuff, that's fine. I could accept that. But, you've got somebody in Israel, somebody in Germany, other people across the country remembering it the same way my mother and I remembered it, and it's bizarre. So I started looking up the Mandela effect, and actually I'd never found this on any of like the top 50 lists or anything like that. I mean, maybe it's been added because I've started talking about it, and of course I got it in the book and all that, but yeah, totally blew me away.
I think one of the biggest ones for me when I started looking into this was the kidneys in the human body. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, you're misremembering or you didn't think of science," but I always thought of boxing. Okay. And in boxing, they would always have, or kidney punches, pardon me, are illegal in boxing because we were always told the kidneys weren't protected. And now if you look at the human body, the kidneys are protected by the rib cage.
Yeah. I always thought they were a little bit lower were our anatomy books wrong when we were kids? I always thought they were lower. And, it's stuff like that. It's a little more, I don't want to say detailed. I'm trying to think what the right word is for it. There's a lot of them when you kind of Google this and you see the top 50 Mandela. A lot of it's branding, like Oscar Mayer or Fruit Loops or something like this. And that could certainly be misremembering and things like that. And we're talking about time travel. I'll say this: nobody's going back in time to change branding. That's just too trivial. But there is something to be said for, if somebody did go back in time and, you're going to have an effect on the environment. You could just be crossing a street and, cars making a turn onto that street has to stop. If you are the time traveler, well, you just changed the trajectory of whoever was in that car, for, pretty much the rest of their life. Remember, we're talking about the ripple effects through time. So maybe down the road, they were supposed to get into an accident and don't, or maybe they do get into an accident and weren't supposed to. And now you've, irrevocably, changed their life. Well, what if that person was, some sort of, marketing executive, or was the person that did the artwork for some of these different things? That could have an effect on whatever that branding is. Not that somebody went back in time to change it, but that they inadvertently changed the trajectory of somebody's life who ended up working on that. With the Shatner movie, was it something happened to one of the writers, or something like this along the way that caused the movie to maybe get filmed at a later date. Maybe something happened with production back in the day. We don't know. You could throw up 100 different scenarios as to what possibly happened to change it from a black and white movie maybe in the late 1950s to a color movie in 1970 with William Shatner.
What do you think caused this? A lot of people believe it's CERN. A lot of people believe that the Mayans, when their calendar dried up in 2012, when it was supposed to be the alleged end of the earth, that maybe it was a time shift. What do you think caused all of this?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the Mayan calendar, I mean, it was the start of the new cycle, and we estimate when that started. How perfect are our estimates with that, considering we know that our own calendar has changed many times over the year. There are entire months, several of them that never existed because the powers that be at the time realized, the seasons are off now. We screwed up somewhere. We're just going to blank out some time and try to correct it. So we're off. So yeah, I mean that might still be happening. Not that the end of the world is going to happen, but basically the start of the new cycle is going to happen. So what happens in the new cycle? But do I think that changed the timeline or created a shift there? No. CERN, I mean, we have our science playing around with a lot of different things. Are they doing things like opening portals and activating stargates and things like that? And so that gets into a whole other plethora of different topics here, stuff that I cover in the newer book, Portals to the Stars, where we could use portals or stargates for a number of different things. It's not just to go across the cosmos. We could use it to move to other places on the planet. We could use it to enter into other dimensions. We could use it to enter other points in time. So the trick is being able to actually harness the power of a portal to be able to actually create it into a stargate and bend it to your will, or you could just use it for like a communication device or something like this. But there are those possibilities that somebody in the future has manipulated something. Again, I don't necessarily think it's going to take a machine. Our current science is saying it'll take the power of the sun to be able to do this. Well, if we harness the power of the sun, we're going to destroy the planet. Or we need a slingshot around a black hole. Well, that's a fun notion, but we're nowhere near a black hole to even try it. So yeah, I don't think we're quite there in our modern society, other than, again, this idea of using the consciousness to be able to actually time travel.
If you look at the Mandela effect overall, a lot of these things seem so basic, whether, like you said, it's Fruit Loops or the Kit Kat logo or the Ford logo or Berenstein Bears, Sinbad's movie Shazam, that allegedly never came out. I mean, when you look at all of this, to a lot of people, it seems very basic. It's very easy to misremember. Luke, I am your father, never happened. If they build it, he will come. If they build it, they will come. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects in movies and features that we're dogged with every day. So my question is, are we just misremembering?
Well, I think in some cases, we could certainly be misremembering. I mean, you're talking about misremembering on a mass scale, but I think that can happen, to some degree. And that's why it's like some of those that are like more common, with the branding, those are ones where it's like, well, again, nobody's going back in time to change branding. It's just way too trivial to do something like that. So that's why I look more at some of these more obscure things, like the incident that my mother and I had, or what you're talking about with the kidneys. That one's a little bit more obscure. Even the idea that Nelson Mandela had died. I mean, where this whole thing started, Fiona Broome, is the one who coined the whole term with the Mandela effect based on that. And how many people across the world thought that he had already died back in the 80s when he was incarcerated. I know when he died, for myself, I kind of scratched my head and I was like, I didn't realize he was still around. I thought he was already gone. I was taken by surprise. It's not like I remember specifically watching the news or something, one day, back in the 80s with it on, but it was like, yeah, I was a little taken aback by it. So I think it's more of those things to look at, the more obscure things, because yes, misremembering can happen.
I always wonder about that. There's a good comment here from Roger in our chat room. The Mandela effect is caused because of time traveling technology. It is creating different branches of timelines, and that's the reason some people remember certain things different.
Yeah.
And
So, yeah, I'll address that one, because I don't really believe in the whole we're branching off into like a million different timelines. Because, like I said, we have one timeline. We have this stack of time, and it's when something gets changed, it is creating a ripple effect all the way up that stack. So if you change something here, well, it's irrevocably going to change something further down the road. It's going to change many things down the road, and that's why we're remembering things differently. And so with the idea of branching off into all these different timelines, I do believe that we have, and I think a lot of our science fiction, and I know with like the Marvel universe and all that, and they're going into the whole multiverse thing, and it's fun. And multiple universes do exist. There are physical other universes, and actually our physics has gotten into this here lately. You read some Michio Kaku, and he talks about what's the book, Parallel Worlds, where actually physics has shown us that outside of our universe there are other universes out there that have basically different nuclear makeups, different chemical compounds, and these sorts of things that some of them will start up and fizzle out real fast. Some of them never really get going. We are kind of like, we talk about Earth being the Goldilocks zone for our solar system. Yeah, but you extend that out a bit, and our universe actually just happen to have the right components to be able to get going and create a universe for a while. But they call them bubble universes. And one of the ideas of portals and wormholes and all that, it might not just take us to this within this universe somewhere across the cosmos to another solar system or another galaxy. It could even take us outside this universe to another universe. So that's like really kind of the true multiverses. There are actual physical universes out there. The idea of branching off into all these different timelines, and one of these ideas is that when we make a decision, that there are, because we could have made multiple decisions, that it's created a new timeline. So me picking up the water bottle here, oh, that created a new timeline. Well, okay, so you're saying that I myself am creating thousands, if not millions, of different timelines every day, and you stretch that out to 8 billion people across the planet, not to mention all the billions and trillions and other life forms that are out there across the universe making decisions. I mean, that's infinitesimal. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So then people try to put a rule on it, like, well, it's the important decisions, like when you decide to buy a house or get married, or some of these other things, major life events. Well, okay, we'll take the car incident that we were talking about before. So person crossing the street, that's not a big decision. Well, but that car that had to stop and brake for you, if they end up getting into an accident further down the road, or don't get into an accident further down the road, then that's a major decision major incident for them. So, trying to apply rules to that whole thing just doesn't work either. No, I believe that, again, breaking down the dimensions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and onward. Again, we're time, fourth dimension here. Fifth, sixth, and seventh can see all that time and manipulate it from outside, but to create all these other I don't think it really works like that. We can change what's happening in our timeline, but I don't think we're creating a whole bunch of other ones that branch off of it.
Okay, 3 minutes to go here, and in the next half hour, we are going to get to some audience questions.
Sure.
I remember Back to the Future, and I know
Mhm.
that some people may roll their eyes and bring up this example, but Doc Brown said to Michael J. Fox in the movie, he said, or Marty McFly, whatever you want to call him, don't talk to anybody, don't touch anything, don't
Mhm.
do anything because it can affect what happens. Don't go look at your parents, don't try talking to them
Right.
because it could affect the timeline in the space-time continuum. And we
Mhm.
saw that throughout the movie. So if we look at that as an example, I believe you call it the butterfly effect as well. Do we then have to worry about maybe time travelers coming here and messing with things to make these changes happen? Is that even a plausibility?
I mean, yeah, that's happening. And again, we see that result in what we call the Mandela effect. Yeah, and Doc Brown was right. Whatever Marty was touching and interacting with there was affecting the future. Did the kid become mayor because Marty told him? He gave him the idea. Yeah, I'll become mayor. Now the whole idea of him disappearing because he interfered with his parents, the basically grandfather paradox. You go back and this was not his grandfather, it was his father. Will that how do you then exist? Well, Back to the Future tried to address that by saying, well, you will erase your existence. And I actually don't think that would be true, that he would erase it. Yes, it would change that timeline. It would change his birth, but he's actually still physically there. So you're talking about the destruction of matter on the spot. And we already kind of know through our laws of the universe, you can't completely destroy matter like that. It just takes a different form. So yeah, I don't think he would actually be destroyed in that moment. He wouldn't completely disappear like that. I think he would actually stay there and live out his life, but his parents' lives would be completely different. So yes, changing the timeline, but he's still there.
1 minute to go here. Your favorite Mandela effect? One that
Oh,
people recognize.
my favorite one that people would recognize. We Are the Champions.
Of the world.
Yeah. Is it of the world at the end, or is it just We Are the Champions and leaves it hanging?
The recording, I figured this one out. The recording was always We Are the Champions, and then it dies off. But I believe at at Freddie Mercury's last performance at Wembley, he actually sang at the end, Of the World.
And I think that could possibly be it, because I had a live album from them, and I think he did Of the World at the end of it. But then I also have, a studio album where, yeah, it trails off. So
Mike Ricksecker continues on Spaced Out Radio right after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, buddy, we're clear.
All right. Cruising right along.
Yeah, that's a good one. The We Are the Champions one.
Yeah.
I remember
it could be people remembering like a live performance, and he did it in the live performance, but then you listen to it on the radio and it's like, wait a second. So that could be.
One of my favorite ones is Cuba. I remember growing up, and because I was a geography nut, I loved maps growing up in school. And I remember Cuba being this small little island to, to the right of Florida. And
Really?
now, yeah, I totally remember that. And now you look at it, Cuba's a pretty big island south of Florida.
Yeah, to the southwest. I don't know. I've always seen Cuba, at least the maps that I remember. I always remember seeing it there. So you got me on that one, Dave.
Yeah. The kidney punches one, or the kidney one trips me out. The heart
Yeah.
trips me out too.
Well, I have to see somebody down there in the chat, New Zealand. Yeah, that's one that to me seems to have shifted. Seeing New Zealand on the map.
Yeah, I always thought New Zealand was in a different place too.
Yeah.
The heart, though, that one kind of trips me out because in Canada, we put a poppy on our left side during Remembrance Day because it's supposed to go over the heart on the left, and yet the heart is more center.
It's more centered, but it's a little offset to the left. So people have it's kind of like, I don't know if it's a tradition or something, but over the years, yeah, people kind of like put it straight on the left, but no, it's offset to the left a little bit from the center. So
don't know.
Yeah, it's those little things like that. Yeah,
it's weird, man.
But I'll kind of throw that out there sometimes when, yeah, I'm a smart guy, but I don't remember everything. And so, somebody might correct me on something that, for whatever I might say, I'm like, yeah, it's the Mandela effect.
We'll treat it the way, whatever. I don't know.
Well, and I see another one. New Zealand and Australia. So there was a article on National Geographic a few years back that actually stated Australia was moving so fast, like the land itself was moving so fast that GPS couldn't keep up. So, I mean, you got to think, land is actually moving. Actually had a few earthquakes here over the last few days throughout the states.
I did not know that.
New Jersey was the first, and then Maine, and then Boise, Idaho.
Good earthquake spots.
Yeah, it's kind of unusual.
All right.
Yeah, you've got a good crew in there tonight, Dave.
Oh, our audience is awesome.
Yeah.
Our audience is just awesome. And if you are new here, do us a favor, hit subscribe, ring that bell. It helps us grow as we are here 7 days a week for your listening entertainment.
And drop in a super chat.
Ben Eubanks, thank you. Well, we got the 2 super chats tonight, but that's okay. It's whether it's one, none, or a bunch, every piece of support is appreciated here.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
There you go. It's all helpful.
You got that right. Speaking of our super chatters, thank you, Cosmic Joe and Boo the Beagle. Appreciate the love. Gemma Jackson, how are you? Just a nice comment. Dudes. It's happening. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag, so make sure you check it on out. And, get yourself some good stuff there. We'd appreciate it. It's not ugly. You can wear our stuff out in public and be proud of it. More places to wear it than just a garage sale or to the flea market. Much like all the paranormal shirts out there. And Bigfoot shirts. And UFO shirts. And ghostly shirts. Yeah. All right, we got about 12 seconds here. Then we're going to get going, Mike.
Awesome.
5 seconds.
No, I did not just graduate high school. I'm 50 years old.
Here we go with the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Mandela Effect is what we're on with author Mike Ricksecker, his website, mikericksecker.com. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Mike Ricksecker is here. We have until the top of the hour. His website, mikericksecker.com. You can find all of his books there, along with his YouTube channel and everything. Honestly, it's a gorgeous website. Go check it on out. I wish my website looked like yours, Mike.
Well, thanks. I wish it showed up on mobile a little bit better. It's got all the letters of my name kind of like going down and all over the place. But after you get past that header, it's fine. I appreciate it, though.
Do you build your own website?
Yeah, I did. I mean, it's again, 30 years in the IT industry. I did, and my degree is in simulation programming. So yeah, the programming and graphic arts and all that stuff. I did all that. Not to mention networking and all kinds of other stuff that I did. Yeah.
All right. Continuing with the Mandela Effect here for a couple more minutes before we get to audience questions. Whether it's misremembering, whether it's just hype or whatever, are we taking the Mandela Effect too far, or is this a subject that needs to go deeper? We need to get deeper into why these things are happening.
Well, I guess I would look at it as, our idea of what we call the Mandela Effect is a gateway into other topics that are a little bit deeper. Just like for me, my research into the paranormal years ago was a gateway into a lot of the other topics that I talk about and cover now. So, what we're calling the Mandela Effect, I don't think is like the singular answer to what's going on, but I think it can lead us to other ideas and possibilities that, we may be wrong about everything we've been talking about tonight, but that doesn't mean it can't lead us to what the real answer is.
Okay. So in your opinion, what is that real answer?
Oh, that's a great question, Dave. That's like, what's the meaning of life, the universe, and everything? 42. To me, it always comes back down to the connections between all of this different phenomena, the connections within the universe. How do all of these different things interact together? Because, what affects us here also affects, the rest of the planet, the rest of the solar system, and onward. And so, same thing, not just in our own physical level, but also interdimensionally, also when it comes to time, there's that symbiotic relationship between all of these different things.
Oh, I love the old simulation talk. Simulation talk just gets me in trouble.
Yeah.
It just does.
And and honestly, I do believe that we are in some sort of simulation. I don't think it's a computer simulation. I think it's a technology beyond our comprehension. I could throw Tesla back into the mix again when a lot of his different concepts, when in like the 1890s, he's basically describing artificial intelligence inside of robots, because he had built a drone that he called an automaton, and he's going on talking about, I could build an automaton of myself that looks and acts like me and responds like me and does all these different things. It's like, this guy's talking about artificial intelligence inside of a robot, but nobody had any idea what that was at that time. It was so far beyond their comprehension. And so, I believe the same thing with us today, that when we talk about a simulation, our idea is the Matrix. That's our reference to it. But there are other technologies that are coming down the road 100 years, 200, 300 years from now, that are totally going to blow our minds compared to what we have today that we haven't even thought of yet. So, I think that simulation that we are in is probably something that's more organic or biological in nature. And this is something that our ancient civilizations and our world religions have talked about, just not using the word simulation. When you think about the idea of reincarnation, that we come from some home world, and we come down here, live a life, learn some different lessons, and then we pass and we go back, and then we come back around again. It's the same thing as logging out, logging in of a computer or a program or a game or something like that. Even Christianity talks about we are in this world now because we are preparing to go on to the next world, which is what you do in a simulation. You're preparing to do something and learn some lessons and then move on. So we're all talking about the same thing here, just using different terminology.
Let's get to some audience questions here. Start off with Overlander. Now, remember, this is going to deal a lot with time travel, too. There's a lot of questions.
Sure.
And Overlander is asking, time travel, if we went back...
Love this question.
If we went back a year, wouldn't we also need to go back to where Earth was in space exactly, so we don't materialize into a concrete wall?
Great question. And this is only the second time I've gotten this in an interview, but it's the third time overall I've gotten it. So when my book first came out, I got a story for this one. My book first came out, my uncle in San Diego, he's a retired nuclear physicist. And he was in here in Cleveland visiting, staying at my Aunt Marge's house. And one morning she's cooking up breakfast, and since he's gotten retired, he's in his older age. He loves his phone, looking at memes and stuff like that. So he's in the kitchen bothering her. Oh, look at this meme. Oh, look at this, is funny. And she's like, hey, stop bothering me. I'm trying to make breakfast. Why don't you go read Michael's book? And so he takes a look at it. Oh, time travel. He's a physicist. And so he gets into it. And between all of his visits over the next couple of days, he finishes the book. So that weekend, I'm at my Aunt Marge's house they were having a cookout and everything, visiting with Uncle Bill. And so he sits me down. He's like, so I wanted to talk to you about your book. I'm like, oh, Jesus, here it is. I'm getting the real test here. Retired nuclear physicist is going to ask me about my time travel book. And so we start discussing it, and he says, I really like your stacked time theory. It makes a lot of sense, but I have one question for you. And it's essentially this question. It's from the Big Bang, the universe has been expanding. So where our planet was 20 years ago is not the same place as where it is now in space physically. So if you're moving up and down this stack of time, how do you account for the difference of where you are physically in three-dimensional space? And I thought about that for a second. I was like, oh, Uncle Bill, that's a great question. And then it kind of hit me, like that eternal knowledge that we were talking about before. I kind of downloaded it, and I gave him a one-word answer. I said, entanglement. And his eyes lit up. He said, oh, yeah, that would do it. So essentially, across that stack of time, as we are moving through space, we are connected through quantum entanglement. So that would actually account for the difference in the fact that we are physically different in space, because it's all connected through entanglement.
I'm not even testing that one. That sounds like a
I know I could have just simply said quantum entanglement for the answer, but I had to give the story. I love it. Yeah, it's a fun story. And so I'm actually adding an addendum to Travels Through Time. I just got finished writing it a few weeks ago, and that story's in the addendum.
Time Travel is asking, did Tesla start the time travel thing? Did he figure it out? Clever, gifted guy that he was?
I don't know if he necessarily started the time travel thing. time travel, I mean, I told the story about Goethe. He preceded Tesla by what, uh, 200 years? Um, you know, maybe 150 years. So, yeah, I don't think he started the whole thing. Now, I think probably played around with a lot of the ideas and concepts, and he, through his thought experiments and things like that, he was definitely downloading information, I believe, from the future, but I don't necessarily would say he started it. I mean, even like H.G. Wells, he wrote The Time Machine before Tesla.
Let's move on to another question from the Desolate One. Would you guys sign up and time travel? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I get asked questions like, "Would you actually?" Yes, I would time travel somewhere, or would you step through a portal or something like that? And it's like, yes, I would, but I would let people know I'm doing it first because I wouldn't just want to like disappear somewhere without a way to get back and people not know. So yes, I would, but let people know what I'm doing first.
Would you go on a UFO? UFO lands in
Yeah.
Mike Ricksecker's backyard.
I
They
would
invite
again. Yeah, again, I would let people know just so that it's not just Mike Ricksecker missing person for the next 50 years or whatever. I would let people know.
Man, it would be great. It would be great. Let's go to JSCO here. Mike, could it be given info about you from another time? I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the it in that is.
Could you
But,
be given info?
I could be given info from another time. Again, that's kind of that idea of eternal knowledge that's all here, ever present. So yeah, I could certainly download information from another time. When people kind of like get inspired and suddenly have like a eureka moment and things like that. And all of a sudden you have this wild idea to do something. Where are you getting that from? Yeah, I think we're pulling that information down.
Okay, so what would you do if you ran into yourself?
Oh, I've actually had thoughts about this. And even as a kid, I had thoughts about, my future self visiting me. What would I do? And now that I've gotten older, I've kind of looked back at that notion and I'm like, because when I was a younger gentleman, I was like, I need my future self to come here and help me out and, put me on the right path, because I'm screwing stuff up. I just knew I was. But as an older guy now, looking back, it's like I would watch and observe that. I wouldn't interfere because I would need that kid, that young man, to get to where I am now. So, yeah, I think I would probably kind of nod and acknowledge myself. There you are, and just let it go.
Let's go over to Jules here. What are the differences between time travelers and ghosts?
Well, ghosts no longer have a 3D body. That's kind of a big deal. Time travelers are still living people that have bodies and are able to move in and about, and walk and all that sort of stuff. Ghosts no longer have the body. This might have been in relation to when I was talking like about the time slips and things like that. In those time slips, those are still living people in their respective times, and they're just getting a glimpse of each other because those two moments, the frequency happened to line up perfectly that they were able to get a glimpse of each other, but they were both living people. They weren't actually dead. The ghost is your fourth dimensional consciousness without the body.
Let's move on. Let's go to Katie Page, good friend of yours of mine.
Yes.
How can you tell a human shadow ghost from an alien shadow figure?
Oh, good question. That's gonna take some investigative work, because a shadow is just the way that your eyes are interpreting the light. So yeah, I mean, a shadow person can be a lot of different things. It could be a human spirit that can't fully manifest as an apparition. Could be an extraterrestrial. Could be an interdimensional being. A lot of these different things that it could possibly be. So that's where it's like you need to kind of get your research hat on and figure it out. There's no like distinctive, well, it's got a, I don't know, it's got white eyebrows, so that makes it a human, whatever. I'm just throwing something random out there. There's not going to be like a distinctive marking like that. But yeah, they can be a lot of these different things. It's just the way our eyes interpreting the light.
I would agree with that. There is a young lady we interviewed here about a month ago or so. She's in the West Coast. Her name is Starshine.
Hmm.
And she actually was out at where was it? Skinwalker Ranch, touring
Okay.
around there, or Area 51, somewhere around there.
Mhm.
And they felt like they were being followed. And her friend took a picture of her. And although they didn't see anything with their naked eye, when they zoomed in on her sunglasses,
Mhm.
you could clearly see an alien gray.
Oh, interesting.
And it wasn't something that was projected on the glasses or
Yeah.
anything like that. I mean, it just blew me away. Blew me away when I saw the photo.
No, that's really interesting. I'd like to see the photo. Yeah.
I'll see if I can get it for you.
Okay.
All right, moving on here. Let's go to search and destroy. What's the next evolution after the internet? What will that interaction look like?
Oh, geez. Thought transference.
See?
I mean, we got all kinds of, yeah. I mean, that's the big question. What's the next big thing? Well, I mean, we're going toward different implants and things like that. That stuff is happening. So yeah, over the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years, we're going to see a lot of that sort of thing happening. And once you start, it's kind of the whole idea of transhumanism. So once you start augmenting the body like that, then we're all connected digitally. Do we need the internet anymore? Or do we become the internet? That it could be something like that.
Could very well be. Could very well be. Let's move on to Sierra. Why don't you think that the Mandela effect is simply certain things that humans can easily remember mistakenly? So is it a psychological effect because certain things are easy to misremember?
I mean, we kind of talked about that a little bit. I mean, yeah, I think some of it is, misremembering, or there might be a certain situation like we were talking about with We Are the Champions. Like there might be a variation out there where he actually says it, and so people remember different versions. So I think some of it is like that, but there are, other obscure ones like we were talking about where it's like it just doesn't make sense that these all these like that film Soul Survivor, the fact that you talk about Sinbad, Shazam, that sort of thing. Well, that's one actor and a title, okay, but with Soul Survivor, there were like specific details within the movie itself that we were all remembering the same, and none of those details were actually in the film that exists now. And again, we're all over the world. It's like my mother and I are misremembering it together. Sure. I could see that. But all of these other people, these fine details, there's something suspicious with that. And so those are the effects that I try to look at a little bit more. Something's a little fishy here. But yeah, the monocle on Mr. Monopoly, yeah, that could be confusing it with Mr. Peanut. Yeah.
Let's go to, hey, you got aliens. Mike, what is your theory on the drone situation? And did you hear the new White House press secretary today give the explanation on the drones? If so, your thoughts?
Yeah, I did. Like that came out probably about 15 or 20 minutes after I posted my latest drone video this morning or early this afternoon. Yeah, so that's basically, she's saying that, well, the drones that were in the air during the ban, it was they were researching, and that was it. They're researching, and then everybody else was private aviators and stuff like that, like the common citizen putting their drones up. So I guess my question here is, because we talked drones last time that I was on your show. For the most part, I always thought that it was, something to do with the government, and they were just not admitting it. And, because they said all along, it's not a foreign adversary, but we don't know what it is. Yeah, sure, you don't know what it is, because if you really didn't know what it is and it's in our skies, you would take it down, and they didn't. So it's like, it's got to be something going on here with the military. So, I always threw out there, they're probably doing some sort of testing. Just say you're testing and people would accept it. And that's essentially what they're doing now, researching, testing. And now we're supposed to accept that. So then it's like, why didn't you just say that 2 months ago? Why is it taking so long to say that? So something is still kind of fishy there. And it also doesn't explain the orbs in the skies, because a lot of people have seen that in addition to the drones, people are looking up, they're seeing the drones, and they're seeing these giant balls of lights that are in the sky that are accompanying these. And some of these balls of light, people are seeing drones coming out of them, or the drones are going into them. And oh, by the way, it's not just in New Jersey, and it's not just in our country. This stuff is happening all over the world. I got footage from a couple of clips from Scotland of these brilliant, huge balls of light that are in the Edinburgh area. And people basically, around the same day, hey, this happened on this day here, and I'm getting different angles of it. So I post that, and all of a sudden, boom, here are.
And Mike is freezing up a little bit here.
Yeah.
You froze up there for a second, Mike.
Sorry. But where did I leave off? Somewhere in Scotland? Was I talking about that?
It caught me off guard, and I panicked, and now I can't remember.
Okay. But yeah, so I started getting all of this footage from people sending me stuff from Scotland of these different balls of light in the air. And so, the United States is not doing anything over there in the Scotland airspace over Edinburgh, so it also seems like a little bit of a prelude to me. You had the balls of light there, yes, along with the drones in New Jersey, and then boom, all of a sudden there's an earthquake, and there is a phenomenon known as earthquake lights. And over there by Edinburgh, Scotland, they just had that big storm Aowen blow through. They had the part of the island of the UK that had the highest winds for that storm, 100 miles an hour, was right there through Edinburgh. So it's like, okay, was this kind of a prelude of things to come, that like energy building up before these things happening? So I think there's still some things are being secretive about here, and there's still more to glean.
I don't believe any of them are alien. I want it to be aliens. Trust me. If anybody wants it to be aliens, it's me. All right. But I believe that there was something secretive going on. And, much like the Black Hawk helicopters that were changed to stealth helicopters to go take out bin Laden and his compound, and we knew nothing about them until the one crash. They had to blow it up. That was our first sight of it and our only sight of it. And from what I hear, those helicopters no longer exist. They were made just for that mission. I believe that the U.S. government has some serious toys that we have zero clue about, and most of it we will never know about. And I think whatever that mission was, that's what they were doing. But I don't think it's aliens. That's me.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've always been, really like 95% our government. I've left the door open just because of that interaction between the drones and whatever these balls of lights are.
Mike, we're going to leave it there. Thank you for coming back so quickly.
Thank you.
Swamp Dweller next, followed by Robin Hayes. We'll continue right after this with Hour 3.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, Mike.
Yeah, as always a great time.
Yeah, let's have a phone conversation soon. I want to ask you a couple things.
Okay. That'll be good. Yeah, just hit me up anytime and we'll coordinate something.
All right, buddy. You take
All right.
care.
Yep. You have a great night. Yep.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mike Ricksecker, everybody. I will be right back. Robin Haynes is here. Looking lovely, Robin. Looking lovely. We'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Did my chair move? Hi, Philip Blair. How you doing? I'm not muted. I can hear myself, and I got levels. My microphone's not muted. Robin, can you hear me? Yeah, Robin can hear me. All right. Thank you tonight to Lenda, Cosmic Joe, and Boo the Beagle. Thank you to all the new subscribers that we got from tonight's show. Appreciate you. Lex Diaz, I'm waiting for a haircut. The lady who cuts my hair, she's booked for a while. Xana May, I know you're an old-time fan. Remember, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store on our website. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag, so make sure you go check it on out. We'd greatly appreciate it. And here we go with hour number 3. Here we go with hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio. Yes, we are underway. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate you tuning us in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Hebitude. Hebitude is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. This happened to my friend Alex and me a couple of months ago around March of 2020. We both attended a school on California's Central Coast. One weekend in April sometime, Alex invited me to join him on a drive a few cities up north where he was picking up a dog he was interested in fostering. Once we picked up the dog, who is a lovely boy, we drove a bit further north to eat before heading back down to go home. We ordered ahead, and once we arrived, we picked up our food. Dine-in regulations are already in place because of COVID at that point. Both new to the area, we Google a park nearby to head out to eat. We pulled up to an empty park. There was only one other person there. He parks on a curb in front of another car, which is important. We quickly walk a few feet to a bench and a table near the curb, tie the dog to a public barbecue grill next to us, and began to eat. We were almost immediately approached by a man intent on talking to us. He specifically asked us about the dog, how old he is, his nature, is he mean, does he bite? Alex is busy answering the man's questions while trying to calm the dog down and eventually shifts his attention only to the dog. The conversation ends with the man stands there for a minute or two just staring at us, but only I notice because Alex is still making sure the dog doesn't try to escape. We both, however, agree that the conversation was quite weird. Anyway, the man walks away towards a shaded area next to the restrooms, under a large canopy type thing. Many parks in California have these. I don't really know how to explain it. I noticed that he sits with another man I had not seen previously, but I wasn't thinking much of it. At this point, the dog is still being troublesome, but I continue to eat. I feel like we're being watched, and I looked over, and the two men are just staring at us, not talking at all. I think it's weird, and I start to feel incredibly uncomfortable. Alex is still struggling with the dog, and when I look over again, I only see one of the men, the one who had not approached us. And when I look again, the one who did was coming for us, hiding behind a vending machine, poking his head out, looking at us ever so slightly, and I catch him. Without hesitating, I tell Alex to grab his stuff and get in his car. He doesn't even question me for a second. We gather our stuff and put it in his car. As we do so, the man still sitting and watching us approaches. And as soon as we get into the car, he begins to talk to us, asking us about the dog and its temperament again. He asked if he's protective and if he bites. Alex barely answers him and starts the car. The man then walks past our vehicle, gets into the car parked behind us where someone has been inside watching us the entire time from just a few feet away without either of us realizing. Over the next 10 to 15 minutes, we pull out of the parking lot, and the other car does the same. We immediately fear that they might be following us. So Alex does a random series of turns until we end up in a neighborhood, and sure enough, the car is still behind us. They are tailgating us at this point, and we're both very freaked out. So we do a few random turns until we enter a roundabout, in which Alex very poorly exits, and they lose us. Very stupidly, we map another park for us to finish eating and arrive at a garden with a good amount of people, only a few streets away. We park, sit on a bench, and keep eating. Maybe 5 minutes later, Alex notices the same car entered the parking lot, and they park near where we were eating. No one exits the car, and we grab our stuff and leave, this time down south. The car starts to pull out too, but luckily we lost them because we got on the street first.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another weird, crazy story. If you want more just like that, head on over to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller. Hit subscribe, ring that bell. He's got thousands of stories right there for you. Let's bring in Robin Haynes. Robin Haynes, nice to have you back on Spaced Out Radio. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Glad to be here. Been working hard on our conference that we've got coming up.
I know.
I know. We're getting excited. We've got some great people, and it's really coming together. So very excited about it.
I need a favor from you.
You got it.
Well, we have a station. We actually reached out to a radio station in Grand Junction about adding Spaced Out Radio to their lineup.
Wonderful.
And we've sent them an information package about us. They've requested one. So if your dear old friends in Grand Junction know anybody at the local radio station, we'd be grateful if they put in a word for us.
Yeah. We'll see what we can find out.
Oh, we'd love to add them. Love to add.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Congratulations. They'd be lucky to have you.
We'll see where it goes because we're ever expanding.
Oh, yeah.
Ever trying to expand.
But everybody loves it. You've got a great show. You got great platforms. Everybody loves it.
Oh, I know. And that's why we got to spread the word a little bit more.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
I'm actually
sure.
getting there. I really am.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do on your travel arrangement since last year when we did it, it was just so chaotic, is get me your pricing and I will transfer money to you and I'll let you book it. So that way you can route it the way you want it. Because when I did it last year, the airline loved you so much they wouldn't give you up. They kept you forever.
All I'm saying is that I'm going to try and go through Las Vegas this time.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, we got to make sure because the last time, to be clear, anytime anybody has to go through Dallas, be prepared for the nightmare of your life. Like, I think other than maybe like Atlanta or JFK, it's like the bowels of hell. And so I have problems every year. Now, this year, I'm going to be very lucky because I will have moved to Texas. So I'm just going to drive over to the conference. So I won't have to deal with it. But normally, every year is traumatic. They cancel my flights. I get rerouted. They wanted me to spend a week and a half at the Dallas airport because they said, well, I can get you to Dallas, but I can't get you back home. And I'm like, am I Hare Krishna? I mean, am I supposed to live at the airport forever? So yeah, we definitely have to revamp your travel arrangements because we didn't get enough time with you last time.
Oh, I know. We'll have some time this time. And
Well,
that's at
I'm
the
hoping,
conference.
yeah, I'm hoping, I'm waiting for word. They are opening a new casino in the same compound as our hall, and they will be finished with it mid-February. And so I'm waiting for my contact to get hold of me to see about booking everybody there. Like, wouldn't the speakers have a blast after the conference at the casinos?
I'd never go to bed. I wouldn't
I
go to
know.
bed.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm really hopeful about that. I think we're going to be able to pull it off. I'm hoping, but it would just be so much fun. And then we always invite all the guests for the conference. You know, if you want to come see our speakers, come visit us over at the hotel. And a lot of them will book there as well, just to hang around everybody. So, and it's going to be fun. I'm really excited. We've got some good people this year.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
we do every year, but it'll be fun.
Well, I'm thankful to be going back for the second year in a row at the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference in Grand Junction, Nebraska.
No, Grand Island.
Or Grand Island, pardon me.
Yeah.
Grand Junction, Colorado. I apologize. But I tell you, coming from the mountains, I don't see a lot of mountains around there. And it's kind of nice to actually be able to see your dog running for 4 miles. That is kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, there are parts of the states that have mountains, but everything that I've seen, and I am not an authority in Nebraska, but everything I've seen is basically flat land. I did go to Barry Webster's place at one point, and there was, where we went at, there were some mountains there, but not huge. I mean, nothing like these big mountains like you would see in like Colorado or, you know, go out in Virginia or North Carolina or things like that. But yeah, it's pretty much flat, any place I've seen there. But it's, you know, we're in Fonner Park, which is for Nebraska, the biggest event center in Nebraska. So we've got that going for us. Last year we had, throughout the weekend, not at one time, but throughout the weekend, we literally had over 700 people filter through there. And this year I'm expecting it to be even bigger. I really am. So we're very excited.
I'm going to be talking about the adventures of Flight 21. That's what I'm going to be talking.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good. So
yeah, I'm so excited.
I mean, people are only going to talk, you know, we don't let them talk more than 2 years in a row. And I'm not speaking this year because I've already done it. And so I'm the assistant manager, so I'm going to be running things, but, with my team, because we work as a family, we do great. But we've got like Rob Kreider's supposed to come. Christian McLeod's coming. I double checked with Christian the other day. Blaine Tyler, his wife. We've got MK Davis, Don Monroe. L.A. Marzulli's coming this year. I've got Daryl Denton scheduled to speak. Christy Sci-Fi. I mean, we have quite the list. You know, if I forgot anybody, I'm sorry. It's late in the middle of the night here. But we've got some really great people that are going to be speaking. So very excited about it. And we're so blessed every year because the guests that we have, I mean, it's just like we have this great time, you know, and we have amazing vendors. And so that's good. If you ever feel like you want to sell the swag for Spaced Out Radio, we can always have you where you send it ahead of time to Harriet's place, because Harriet McFeely owns it. And then you'll have it there to sell at your table, because you automatically will get a table because you're a speaker. So if that's something you want to do to sell some of the swag there, you can do that. You can take orders and then, you know, ship them out yourself, however you want to do it. But it's open to you to do that. And we do get some really great vendors.
Love it. Love it. I bought a lot of swag there last year. I'm not going to lie.
Okay. I don't even want to hear about it because every year I go there and I take an extra large suitcase so I can pack whatever I buy in the suitcase. And then every year I have to buy a second extra large bag. And then I have to pay for more luggage. And then I still have the carry-on. Like every time I go there, when I go home, it's double what I went there with. Like, I bought more suitcases in Nebraska than anybody ever should, and I still have stuff there from last year. Michael Payton, who's an artist and is just incredible, and I love his artwork. And he gifted me this beautiful drawing that he did in a frame, and I absolutely am obsessed with it. And I couldn't fit it in a suitcase. I couldn't fit it in anything. So I have a room at Harriet's that I have, and I have it there. So this year, because I'm driving, I can take it back because I'll be in my new house by then, and I can take it back. But yeah, he does just amazing work. Just love him.
I want to ask you, as we get into the subject tonight, I got into this with Jackie Harmon the other night on the show about the speaking, the noises, the language that is used. I have heard the hoops, I've heard the howls, I've heard the roars, I've heard the samurai chatter. What does it all mean? What is it all about?
Well, they have their own language, okay, beyond the samurai chatter. They do have their own language. Their words do not mean what our words mean. So there is, that gap there. Now, the ones that I'm working with, one in particular has shared some of the words with me. And so I'm learning it. I'm learning the lingua. But when they talk, they used to sit outside, and they still do at times. They'll go and they'll sit outside my window, and then they talk. And when they're talking in their language, you have to remember that their vocal range goes much higher than ours and much lower. It really does. Plus, it's down in, it's guttural. Like, we talk and it comes from the upper part of our throat. Theirs comes from down in the clavicle. So they've almost got that grumbled, no matter if it's high or low, it's gurgled. And so they do have their own language, but they can speak any of ours as well. They're multilingual. There's nothing they can't do. And then you get the howls. Now, when they're doing those howls, they are not just standing out there and howling at the moon, acting goofy. 9 out of 10 times, it's communication amongst themselves. Like, they're out and you'll hear one go off one place, and then far away you'll hear another one go off. Or if you go out in the woods, they're going to make a sound, whether it's an animal noise, whether it's a howl, a call of some kind. I've had them where they're out there and they're taking their hand and slapping their cheeks and making that, or a popping noise, where they would put their finger in their mouth and they pull it and it makes a popping noise. That's all signals to other ones. It could be anything from, hey, there's somebody walking in the woods, or this is such and such, or do this or do that. And they'll use that not only if one of our humans is in the woods, but if they're out hunting or whatever they're doing. But it's a form of communication, almost like a Morse code between each other. And then when they do talk, you have where it depends on the clan. I have some that when they talk, it's 1,000,000 miles an hour, and it sounds like gibberish. The ones in Michigan that I would work with every night and was outside in the woods with every night, they would start out every night by coming and sitting under my window, and it literally sounded like gibberish. Couldn't understand a bloody thing they said, and they said it so quickly, and it was so guttural, I couldn't make out what they would say. And if they're trying to talk to me, I'd be like, okay, you got to slow it down. I can't get it. The ones in Siberia, because I did the international conference there years ago, they tried to talk to me in Russian. And as we all know, and Igor Borstev has tried for years, God bless his soul, Robin doesn't do Russian well. Okay, I barely do English well. Russian is above my pay grade. And so I would have to say to them, I can't understand. And then they would go English. So they are capable of being very much multilingual and, to do that.
I look at the idea of this communication very, very intriguing, because I remember when I heard the samurai chatter, and I've only heard it once. That was in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't prepared for it. I'd love to hear it again. Can you, as a person, make them do that?
No. First off, they don't do anything they don't want to do. Second, the only way, I have some that if I ask them to do certain things, very minute things, that they will grant me that and they will do it. But to get them to do, it's very hard to do that. Like, you have to have a certain relationship with them in order to do that. Now, I know of a couple of them that I've said, well, can you do this, or can you make this noise, or can you make that noise? And they've obliged and they've done it. But again, it's at their discretion. Like, we have to go into it realizing we have no control. They are control freaks, more so than even we are, because that keeps them safe. So they like to think that whatever they do is their idea. Now I know, like I said, of a couple of them that if I ask them to do things, they are gracious and most of the time will oblige. But just, you've got to have a really special relationship to do it. One of the ones that I work with, like, I love the different growls. Anywhere from what sounds like Chewbacca on Star Wars to an actual growl. And just for the record, not all growls mean they're mad. Like, there are some that will come up to you in the woods and will make that little, and they're not being aggressive. It's just almost like a hello.
I wish I could understand it. I really wish I could understand what the meaning is or what attracts. Like, I go back and I think of the deep guttural growl, and I've heard it twice. Now, I've heard it twice in two different locations. I still don't know if it was a Sasquatch. I want to believe it was a Sasquatch,
Mm-hmm.
but in reality, it could have been a bear in my
Right.
area, even though there was no bear prints or signs of bears in either of those areas at that time. The deep guttural growl, is it a warning, or is it a harbinger of something coming? What do you think?
It's actually and this is just my experience. I mean, obviously, I'm not a Sasquatch. In my experience, I've had them do it just almost like to say, hey, I'm right here. You're getting too close. I'm just right here. I've had them do it while I was out with them. And when I was in Michigan, we had a cougar. And we also had a black bear that would wander on through my property. And I was out with them one day and they started the growl. And I was like, okay, this one, a lot of times they'll do a growl almost like just to let you know they're there, or a hello, or they'll say hello, but it sounds like it's a growl because it's so guttural, depending on the individual. And there was a black bear on the property and they were just kind of like growling, not for my benefit, but at the bear. So the bear didn't come any closer. I don't think that we can say that they do anything with only one purpose. Everything with them is so complex. Like, people really don't understand how complex it is. It's like a layer to an onion. For every one thing you do, there's a multitude of reasons. And then they have their days where they're just silly because they have a wicked sense of humor and they're just goofy, almost childlike. And then it's just very simple and it is what it is. But for the most part, they don't do anything without a reason. And when it comes to these vocals, they can mean so many different things, whether they're communicating with each other, whether they're communicating with us, whether they're communicating with whatever else is out in the woods as a warning. But some of the growls are not always an aggression. Like, they may know in their mind why they're doing it, even if we don't. And I've had, again, my neighbor next door, when her son, was putting things out into the brush, and there was one standing like literally feet from him. He had no idea it was there. And all it did, it made the growl noise. It never got threatening. It never tried to harm him. It growled. It was in physical form. And then after he saw it, looked it in its eye, it simply cloaked. It never tried to harm him. In that particular case, it was a matter.
Hold that thought, Robin. We're going to go to break here. Final break tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we're clear.
Ah.
We'll get to your questions coming up here, people.
But their voices are so cool. And the other night I was talking with two of them, not through MindSpeak, but let's verbally.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all so guttural, but yet every voice is individualized. It's different. You know, some are very easy to understand. The second one I was talking to the other night, his was so deep that it was like I really had to strain to make out what he was saying. You know, and then I've had females talk to me and their voices were so much higher that it was really difficult to understand. When I was in Michigan and I had two females that would sit under my window and they would talk. I don't know why they felt that was the only place to talk at, but they would sit under there and talk and they were really high pitched. It was a very high pitched voice.
I haven't heard the high pitch voice yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a higher pitch, but it's still gargled. It still doesn't come like, you know, ours is coming from that top of the throat there, but theirs is from the clavicle. And so it's really weird when the females speak because they almost sound, you know, I mean, not that some don't have a deep voice, but some of them have a very high pitch, but yet it still comes out of that deep guttural sound where you can almost hear them gurgle. You know, I had, we were talking with one today and it's like he sounded so close and he was actually 10 foot away, but their voice has so much volume to it, you know, that it just, if you can feel it when you're really close to them, if they're loud at all, it'll vibrate. I mean, you literally feel like your chest cavity is vibrating.
Yes. I haven't been that close yet to feel that internally, but I can imagine.
Yeah, some of the howls, I had the ones in Michigan when I was there, and then I also heard this in South Carolina and in Nebraska and in Texas. And they would be far away and they'd cut loose with those howls, and it felt like they were standing right next to you. It really did. I mean, they've got very powerful voices. The volume with the lung capacity that they have, the volume that they can achieve is just unbelievable.
We'll get more into that here in just a little bit because I do want to put that on air. That's for sure.
I wish I would have spent more time recording vocals. I never really did. Like, you know.
Yeah. I'm sorry to cut you off. I think that this project that we're embarking on,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to get something. I have a feeling that we're going to get things there that we aren't even prepared for yet.
Yeah, well, I've got a few that I keep kind of private because it's conversations with them that I'm having.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and I've got the recordings from when Igor Borstov spoke with them, like, you know, and everybody got so worked up about it because it was through a phone call. People need to understand when that happened, the Sasquatch wasn't holding a phone up to his ear. You know, there was one of our humans there that had a cell phone, that had it on speaker, and simply sat the phone down. And within whatever radius that phone could pick up, you could hear them talking. That was how that phone call went. And everybody just got so worked up about it and, you know, yelling fraud. And all, that's not even how it went down. And this was one that I had mind spoke with before, so I knew he existed. You know, I have another one that I've actually physically seen that will do the same thing. But, you know, all they have to do is get in the radius of the phone while your phone's on speaker. But I've recorded different vocals, but I never really tried hard. Like everybody says I'm a researcher. I'm really not. I'm an experiencer. And so when I met Igor, he was all about getting the proof, you know, getting the DNA samples, which I did. and getting the pictures, getting vocals, getting film. And it was like, I just wasn't as concerned about that. Do I have all that stuff? Yeah. But I just wasn't as concerned about that as I was the interaction with them.
All right. 1 second here. We're going to get going in a couple seconds here. So just be sitting tight, Robin. And here we go in 5 seconds, my dear. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're going to continue with the Cryptid Report. Robin Haynes here momentarily. But first, I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Robin Haynes of the Cryptid Report continues right now. And Robin, we were talking about vocalizations. What do they mean? Have you been able to translate or differentiate between an aggressive voice or vocal call and one that is more curious?
I have, but in all fairness, I also read energy. So when you hear that voice, you can feel the energy in it, whether it's an aggressive voice or not. And they do project a lot of emotion. They're high frequency beings, so they do a lot of projection. So when you hear that vocal, not in all cases, but sometimes, you will get a projection of that emotion so that you really pretty much know what's going on. But I will say this, when you do hear the growls, we automatically, like if a dog growls, it's aggressive. If a bear growls, it's aggressive. So you automatically go to that aggressive place because that's what we're trained in our brain to think it is. It not always is. There are times, yes, it is. And it's like a warning of, you're getting too close. I need my space, or turn around. It could be, to protect you as well as to protect them. But there are cases that growl is not aggressive. They're so deep, even to say hello, depending on how much they're moving their mouth, because it is so guttural, it can sound like a growl. I spoke with one today and there was a little bit of a growl there. It wasn't directed at me. It was directed at something else, and so I wasn't in any danger at all. And it means various things. Again, these are very complicated beings, where certain things can be just, they are what they are. A lot of it is very complicated. There's different meanings for everything. Sometimes there's more than one meaning for things. Our words don't mean what theirs do. They've adapted to somewhat knowing what our words are so they can try to get an idea. But a lot of times we'll say something and in translation to them, it means entirely different. So you've got to be very mindful when you're speaking with them. Speak to them very clear, short sentences, and there's no wiggle room for interpretation. You don't put anything out there that they have to interpret, because it's going to be wrong. I promise you, it will be wrong. You have to be very specific when you speak with them, when you talk to them, so that they know exactly what the meaning is. Don't put it in a format that there's any wiggle room for a different interpretation. Very basic. When they're talking, to you, because their words do mean different. And if they're going to talk to you in their language, it can be very difficult to know what they're talking about. Some of them use more of a Native American language incorporated with theirs. Some of them talk really, really fast, like gibberish. And if you get a recording of that, then you can slow it down and redo it.
One more question for you before we go to audience questions. If you look at the 1970s Sierra sounds,
Incredible. Just incredible.
they are incredible.
They are.
And if you want a sample of that, if you re-listen to Robin's intro, I actually have audio from the Sierra sounds in the background there to surprise her for that. And I know she loves it.
I love that. Yes.
Would you say that audio of the whooping, the screaming, the hollering, the samurai chatter, would you say they were being friendly, or would
Yeah.
you say they were being curious or territorial?
Well, the thing of it is another thing that they will do is incorporate sounds in with the language. But in the Sierra sounds, there in one part in particular, they were arguing between a male and a female. It wasn't even directed at them. There was vocals that were, directed to Ron Moorhead and his party, and they were not aggressive. What I saw or what I've heard, and I've got all of Ron's recordings. I've got all of his CDs because he does sell them, and they're absolutely incredible. They weren't being aggressive with him. There was one point where the male and female got into a bit of a tiff, and they were fighting over bear meat is what they were fighting over. And so the male and the female had a heated argument, much like you would maybe a husband and a wife or a boyfriend and girlfriend would get in. They had a lover spat. But the contact that I heard that was for Sierra Sounds was not aggressive to Ron and his party. I mean, they have moments because they are such a high frequency, which means their emotions run rampant, where in the middle of a conversation, they may get really uppity for a second and then it comes back down. Doesn't mean they're being aggressive. They are high frequency beings. They are high emotion beings. Every emotion they have is like primed, cocked, and loaded at all times. They love harder. They hate harder. They get angry quicker, and they can go from A to Z in a minute. Like they can be mad 1 second and then the next minute they're fine. And I've seen that happen over and over again. But the Sierra Sounds is brilliant. I think of all the recordings out there, that is by far, without a shadow of a doubt, the absolute best. They're just incredible. And if you take them, you can play them over and over, slow it down on your recorded device so that you can understand it, and you will pick up a little bit of it. But like I said, there was a big fight going on over bear meat between the male and the female at one point. There were other things going on, but at one point, that's what the biggest hoopla of it was, is they were fighting over bear meat.
Good old bear meat. That'll do it every time.
I'm telling you. And, you don't, whether you're a Sasquatch or one of our people, don't piss off a woman. They get a little pissy.
All right, let's get to some audience questions here. Let's start off with Mike, who is asking, when Bigfoot hunt for deer, do they use the whole body for other things? Skin, antlers for certain things?
Absolutely. And there has been a lot of footage out there, although it is hard to find, but there has been a lot of footage taken where they've taken the hides from the deer and actually draped them across their body for warmth. And certain members of the hierarchy in the clan will have various skins that they'll put on as well. It's not, they don't all do that, but some of them do. They're going to use the antlers as a tool. Those antlers can be sharp. There's very little that they don't use. I had a female that was out here, she came out in my bushes right up here by my house. And, rattlesnakes are everywhere out here. And she literally had the rattles from rattlesnakes. And she was like standing in the bushes rattling this. And I'm thinking, okay, there's this rattlesnake. And then I see her moving around in there. I'm like, okay, not a rattlesnake. We're just playing with the rattles. They'd make kids' toys out of it. But they're going to use the rattle or the antlers for certain things. Yeah. I mean, we do. We clank them together so the bucks think that there's, this big squabble going on. They're going to do the same thing. They're going to use them to call deer in. They're going to use the hides. There's literally nothing on them that they're not going to use.
All right, let's move on to another question here. Let's go to Jules. Do Bigfoot concern themselves with soap opera news of this world, or are they?
No, they think we're ridiculous. They tell me all the time, "You're silly, hairless humans." That's what they say. They think we're ridiculous. They don't understand money. So everybody fighting over money, it just makes them disgusted because they don't have that system. They think we fight amongst themselves. We don't work as a collective consciousness, which they do. And so they don't really concern themselves with us. Part of the laws that they have are we live our lives, they live theirs. Okay. Doesn't mean that they don't communicate with people, but only to a certain extent. Some of them are obviously much more friendly. I have some that I've worked with 4 years and are just as friendly as, a neighbor next door. But they don't know. They don't concern. The only time that they're going to concern themselves is if we're doing something stupid that will have a direct effect on them. They get concerned about the nuclear weapons. They don't always understand what they are, but they have an innate sense of this is going to ruin it for everybody. They're here to guard the planet. They're here to protect the planet, to nurture the planet. We do the opposite, even when we're trying not to. So they really don't have the same concerns that we do, but they are mindful when stupid things go on with our people. Money issues, they don't get that. I get a lot of that from them, and they're like, "Why you fight over that? Why you fight?" And I'm like, our people need it to survive. We can't get certain things without money. And they're just very down on the whole money thing. They do a barter system. They'll trade. They used to trade with the Native Americans, but money isn't something that they know anything about, and they just think it's ridiculous.
Let's go to another question. Let's go to Paramarv. When you move to Texas, are the forest people that live on your land going to follow or stay there in that area? Maybe one of them can drive a U-Haul for you.
I wish they would drive a U-Haul, because I am in the middle of trying to figure out how to get everything I need to Texas and how many drivers do I need. And it's chaos. It's total chaos. So some of the ones that I had in Michigan, I did have 3 or 4 that came here to South Carolina. And I am hoping, and I've already requested, that they show up in Texas, and, mixed emotions on some of those, but I think that they will. They've been following me for years. Predominantly the amount here in South Carolina won't, but it's also important to realize that they do go through portals. I have had some in Texas that are by a friend's house that have shown up here over the years since I've been in South Carolina. So if they are of a clan that portal, they're going to be bebopping all over the place. And not all of the clans will use them. It depends. The leader of the clan will determine if they're going to use them. But that is a very large way that they travel. So it is possible that, yes, some of the ones from my Michigan group, they are planning on a Texas move. Not a lot, certainly not the whole clan. And whether or not some of the ones in South Carolina, they are welcome. Where I'm at, I already have some on my land. So then they've got to get permission to be able to come on there, because it's somebody else's territory. So, but yeah, it's entirely possible. Once they get locked in on you and you're friends with them and they like you, they tend to follow you everywhere. Although I do like the idea of them driving the U-Haul. That would be lovely. I could use the backup.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to Mike again. Do Bigfoot ice fish in the winter? If so, what tools would they use, if any?
They would go right by the banks, and they just, pile drive with their hand. They'll use a stick, they'll use a log, whatever, and get a hole in that ice. And if they can grab a fish, they will. I don't know that I've seen them do that a lot. I've seen them out messing around with the ice and getting down where they could. If there was a fish down there, they could have actually grabbed it. But do I think that they are capable of doing that? Absolutely. And they would just take something, a log or branch, stick, whatever they could that would break the ice. They'd stomp on it. I've had multiple times where I've found the large footprints on the ice, and then you've seen areas where they've taken and stomped the ice with their foot and broke it. You know, they're so strong, they could take just a fist and break a hole in the ice. But yeah, they will reach down in there and grab a fish.
All right, let's move on to another one here. Let us go over to, hey, you got aliens. Robin, did the Bigfoot you communicated with at your previous home follow you to your new home? Yeah, we've already had that question, so I'm going to just skip that one.
Yep.
D. Saifa is asking, are the Bigfoot using a vocal sound to move objects instead of physically throwing an object?
I've not seen them use vocals to move it. They can use telekinesis to move it, absolutely. But I will say this, I've seen the capabilities these things have. It wouldn't surprise me. I have not personally seen it, so I'm not going to say 100% yes, they would do it with vocals. But I will say this with the vocals, those vocals are so loud and so deep that everything vibrates. Like, I've had them outside screaming at each other, not at me, and literally my walls vibrated. You know, it wasn't because they were trying to vibrate the walls, but because of the depth and the range in those vocals, it's vibrated things. But they can use telekinesis, and they are capable of moving things that way.
All right, let's go on to another one. We got 5 minutes left. Let's go to another one from You Got Aliens. Robin, has Bigfoot ever imprinted on you?
Really good question. Some of the ones that I'm very close to, it's possible. I'm not going to say yes. If they have, I've not paid attention to that as an imprint, but I have some that are very attached to me that have followed me for years. Some that have said they've watched me since I was a child, or they've had other family members that have watched me since I was a child. So, I mean, if you want to consider that as imprinting, it's possible. But I do have some that I am very close with that have followed me throughout my lifetime.
I'm ready for another one. Are you?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it. Let's go to D. Saifa. Oh, we asked that question. Let's go back to Jules. If you have a Bigfoot sighting in childhood, does it mean you were lucky or something else?
Actually, both. There are accidental sightings. You know, some of the adolescents might be out not paying attention, or you may just absolutely come up on one, not intentionally. And of course, you're lucky to be able to see them. Other times, it is set up. I work with a lot of clients that have had encounters. I'll say to them, like, we'll be talking and I'll do, some kind of a psychic reading or whatever on them. And I'll be like, okay, what happened when you were this age? Because they saw you when you were that age, because they've told me that. And they'll be like, yeah, this occurred and I didn't know why. So there are times that it's set up, but there are accidental ones. I mean, as good as they are, as stealth as they are, there is still accidental encounters that they were not planning on, just because they weren't being mindful or they were not paying attention. They didn't scan everything before they went wherever, or you just happen to accidentally cross paths. And in my opinion, that's very lucky. That's a blessing. Put that in the win category. But there are some that when you were a child were 100% arranged, because as a child, you are more open and accepting. And that is a great way for them to make contact with you. If you are someone that they may perhaps want to watch, if you have a certain energy, a certain frequency, they're going to be watching you from a child, and that will carry on through your life.
Well, let's continue on. We have Nikki here who is asking, why are some Sasquatch clans matriarchal while others are not?
It just depends on the clan. I mean, we've got some really powerful, or not we, they have some very powerful females. And there are some that they will let those females, have a more powerful presence in the clan. Traditionally, the males run the clan. That does not mean that a female can't. If her mate dies, but she's still a very powerful female, she may try to take over. There were some in Ohio that I used to talk to, and that one, the female had so much power to her as far as paranormal abilities. She really, even though there's predominantly a male that runs the clan, she seemed to have the upper hand in everything. Like nobody did anything without her consent. Even though she was not listed as considered the leader, she had more pull than anybody. But predominantly, it is more, male chauvinist thing.
And finally, from Scott, we got 90 seconds. Where was the incident in Michigan? This is where I reside.
I'm not sure which incident he's referring to. I've had encounters all over the state of Michigan and up to the UP. A lot of my incidents where I would say were probably the best in my lifetime, for sure, were in the Manistee National Forest. And that there's a lot of dogman in the Manistee National Forest. I've interacted with them. I've worked with them. They've helped me at times. They were not a problem. There are certain areas in Michigan that you have to be cautious of. Like Grayling is a place that they seem to run through. And like, there was a time that I was actually involved in the music business, and we had practice with the band at somebody's house in Grayling. And I tell you what, the ones that were around that part of Grayling were so hostile, like literally hostile. They never tried to hurt me, but the energy off of them was just vile. I've heard problems in the Pigeon area. That doesn't mean they're all bad there. It means that there are some nasty ones in that area. But my main areas that I had the most encounters in were in the Manistee National Forest and over in the Thumb area.
All right, Robin, I want to say a big thank you once again for coming on Spaced Out Radio. It is always a pleasure to have you, and taking audience questions, I think, is fantastic. 10 seconds. Where can people get a hold of you?
You can find me on Facebook under Robin Haynes, not Robin L, but Robin Haynes.
Yo, Robin, please say goodnight to Robin and hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Ball, rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat room tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio, SLR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
mistake. We're watching.
we own the night with Mr. Bumblefoot. We need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. All right, Robin, we are clear. Oh, she left. Well, I guess I'm talking to myself then. All right, everybody, we are clear. Jan 28? Yeah. 25. With Joe, thank you very much for oobing. You know what I mean? I'm just going to say this because I know 99.8% of you get it. Okay. When you're here, sit back and enjoy the woo. I don't understand how people can just get so flippin' angry because they don't agree with a guest. Like, and then they start insulting me. Well, this is the reason why your show doesn't grow. I have over 200,000 listeners a night or close to it. Okay, maybe one, yeah, that's probably exaggerated. Maybe 177, 180. I got 8 different radio stations that are listening to us. Okay, it's not just YouTube. I get over 70,000 people a month downloading us as a podcast. I think I'm doing pretty good. Oh, and other radio stations are looking to pick us up. So I don't care if you don't agree with a guest. There's guests I don't agree with who make comments I don't agree with. All I'm asking is don't insult them. Those people, whether you like it or not, have given you 2 hours, maybe an hour, maybe half an hour of their time for you to be entertained. When I didn't like a guest that Art Bell had on back in his Coast to Coast days, you know what I did? I didn't listen that night. Didn't listen. Wasn't for me. When he would get into his solar flare uh, shows with Whitley Strieber. Okay. Solar flares didn't interest me. I wanted to hear aliens. I wanted to hear ghosts, Bigfoot, all the weird stuff. You didn't see me emailing because that was the time of writing letters to Art Bell. I'm never listening to you again. This is why your show sucks. This is why you're not growing. Oh, fuck. Pardon my language, but this makes me shake my head. No, like I don't mind if you disagree with the guest at all. I don't mind. But the passive aggressive cheap shots, I don't have time for that. I don't. Hi Magneticus, how are you? J Truthseeker, how you doing? Look how tough I am. I'm going to say your show sucks and is not growing because of guests like this. I got 20 some years of radio and talk radio, so I'll decide what works and what doesn't. just makes me laugh. It's like my one troll that picks on our Keith Andrews all the time. Takes a real tough guy to bully someone. Oh, Fap. You're really kicking me in the stones tonight. My love of soccer. Are you kidding me right now? I would never insult myself that way. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that happening over the next little bit, Mike, regarding the FAA theory and all of that. I have 3 different sources, one in Canada, 2 in the United States, that are claiming it's not alien. These are people who have big time ties to it. So, I mean, I don't get it. I want it to be aliens, guys. I really do want the drones thing to be aliens. I don't see it. I really don't see it. Look, I do a show like this, man. I want it to be aliens. I don't want that. All right, we'll just leave that up there for now. What do I want? I wanted this. Bring you guys back up. Oh, I don't think that's the full story, Mike. I don't believe that's the full story at all. I do believe that there was a mission going on that they probably do not want us to talk about. Nor was there the security clearance given to talk about that. Mike Bothwell, if you get really somebody with really good jerky and they put some pepper in it, bear jerky tastes really good. Bear is a hard meat though because they have a lot of muscle. I'm okay if Eric leaves the area. Sweet Robbie G, how you doing, buddy? Scott S., I believe you are correct. Yeah, make sure everybody heads over to the Social Dig after we're done here and goes to parties with Sweet Robbie G. If you're lucky, I heard a rumor, and I don't know how true it is, but apparently tonight, Sweet Robbie G will be showing his chest hair. If Deb's around, she'll like that. I bet you, Per Marv, it is. I bet you he dyes his chest hair red. Bombshell Bomber, how are you? I'm like in slow motion right now. My day and night were pretty good, thank you. Thank you for asking. Damn it. There we go. Sweet Robbie G, can you confirm you will be showing off the chest hair on the show tonight? Seriously, why does that keep happening? For every brand new subscriber that Sweet Robbie G gets tonight, he will mail that person one chest hair. It's true. He will mail that person one chest hair in his beautiful red chest hair that he colors. Yes, Lex, if you unsubscribe and resubscribe, it counts. I did say specifically it would be Rob's chest hair, not mine. I don't have red chest hair. Adam B, nice Canadian super chat there. Thank you, for my friend. Where are you from? Are you a left coaster too? Yeah, that just got you banned, you racist prick. Yeah. I didn't even read the comment. I just saw something racist in there, and that's a quick way to get banned. Imagine that there are people out there who think it's funny doing that. Nova Scotia, what the hell are you doing up at this time? It's like 4:18 in the morning there. I just don't get it. What kind of, honestly, reclaimed or old school virginity do you have to have in order to make idiotic comments in YouTube chats? Like, I could see doing that when I was like 15, 16, 17. Maybe not the racist side, but acting like a moron in somebody's chat group. But thinking that's just, I don't get it. No, they're you get these people every now and again who just spin in, make a stupid racial or idiotic comment, and then they leave. I call them one and dones. And usually when we see them, we just immediately block them. That's right, the Doug Shelby. The Doug Shelby. Still awake with us. Who's on tomorrow night? Aaron Judkins. I'm not sure if it's Aaron or Aaron. We're going to get into the mysteries of Göbekli Tepe. We're all going to have to study up for that one. Thank you tonight to Adam, CS, Linda, Cosmic Joe, Boo the Beagle. Thank you to all our new subscribers. And we'll see you tomorrow night, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to head over to Sweet Robbie G's Social Dig. He's going to have a great show lined up for you talking about the drones. Good night, everybody.
healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.